Who the hell is calling us? Dude, it's the future. You'd think they'd at least text. Hello, this is the USCSS Podcast. Kenny speaking. What can I do for you?
Yes. I was just wondering if you knew why the blind miner fell into the well.
No. Why?
He couldn't see that well.
Oh, come on.
What's up?
Dude, that was a prank call we got just now, somehow.
You gotta be kidding me.
Whatever.
Hello, you've reached the USCSS Podcast. This is Neil speaking.
Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut?
No.
He needed space.
Oh, God. Jeez, dude, it was another prank call. That's it. We're not answering any more of these phone calls today.
Good idea, dude.
Hey guys, I'm on a seafood diet. When I see food, I eat it. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, come on. That sucked.
I'm gonna dump your water out and beat you with the tank. Welcome to Crew Expendable. I am Rat Smasher Hallstrom.
I am Space Station split in half into two different but equal pieces Rohrbacher.
And we got a couple guests with us.
We sure the heck do.
Let's have our new guest go first.
I am Synth main directive to tell jokes while eating cornbread next to a dippy bird, Norbert.
Pretty specific. I love it.
I agree.
And I'm Tom, and I'm the thing in the fucking water, Dorrington.
And we are just a bunch of dudes inserting our fingers into the computer holes of the Alien franchise.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. That's true.
That was originally my designation, but it made more sense to drag us all into that.
That's fair.
I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Tom, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
What up?
And Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, man. Mike, why don't you plug anything you got going on before we jump over to Tom and people shut off the episode? Not because of Tom. That came out wrong.
No, I get it. It's fine.
Yeah, of course. Well, anyone can catch my update of Alien in Universe chronology at my Instagram page at aliens_EU.
Hell yeah.
I am also one of the current active administrators at Xenopedia. I think it gets mentioned a lot in the podcast, which is pretty cool.
It sure does.
Yeah. And I encourage any and everyone to learn, contribute, and join the conversation. And that would be at avp.fandom.com.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, I've never heard of this website, but I'm sure it's got a lot of good information on it.
Bold choice to crack that joke like 8 seconds after we were like, oh yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Well, yeah, whatever. CNN.
Funny little tidbit is that there was like a pre-screening interview with Fede, and when someone asked him about the pulse rifle and the history of it and where he sort of like came up with the ideas for making sure everything was in continuity, he mentioned that he had Xenopedia open while he was writing the script.
Nice.
And that's a big win for me, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So any continuity errors, it's your guys' fault.
Yeah.
And Tom, why don't you plug your art Instagram or anything else you got going on?
Yeah, chill. That's r_of_Wantes, and that's my Instagram page. And that's pretty much all I have going on.
Well,
to be fair, I'm lazy.
It's something at least.
Yeah, I've been a bit quiet on it lately, but after seeing a certain particular film, I've got the juices flowing again, and I'm currently working on something, my take on a particular scene from said film.
Nice. We're talking Harold and the Purple Crayon, right?
Do you know what? Yeah.
All right, so guys, we invited you two on the show to talk about, I don't know if you guys have heard of this movie, Alien Romulus.
I've heard whispers.
Whispers.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw a trailer for it.
I think you guys saw a lot more than trailers for it. Kenny and I were avoiding I was avoiding as many spoilers as possible. Kenny was a little more passive about it, but he wasn't intentionally seeking anything out. Is that about
Also,
right, Kenny?
That is exactly correct. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas I was telling people to shut the fuck up and not tell me anything about this movie. You guys were kind of following it a little bit closer than we were, so I thought it'd be fun to get a little bit of your perspective on, well, obviously on the finished film, but also theories and stuff, rumors that were going around that you might have picked up on, and what was true or false, or if the movie sort of fit your expectations based on everything you had heard or not. I guess this is an important time to tell anyone listening to this that we are going to spoil the fuck out of this movie.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Alien Romulus yet, turn this off now.
Yeah, I'd advise so.
And look at that title of this episode where it clearly says spoilers. That's all. They're spoilers. We've made it clear. Mm-hmm. So I think we're good now to talk about whatever we want. So where should we start?
Well, first off, actually, since this is Mike's first time on the show, I'd like to do the standard first guest appearance and just be like, yo, what's your history with Alien? Tell me all about what it's like for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yo, so my history with Alien starts with I'm like a 10 or 11-year-old kid. I am collecting baseball cards and hockey cards, but I'm not into sports whatsoever. And I'm using the Beckett's, and I'm like putting cards in cases that really are worth money. And so my mom brings me to a comic book store and sort of looks at it as an investment. Like, we're going to get a comic that is worth money. It looks like you can take care of it. Let's see where you go with it. Okay. And what is there but a bundle of Aliens 1 through 6.
Oh, shit.
So that is my introduction to the franchise, the universe, everything I pour my time over these days. So those 6 issues I read, over and over, and I had this image of what this universe would be in my head based on those 6 issues, not even knowing it was a film franchise at that time.
Damn.
And so I would, keep them in sleeves. I had them bagged up. And then, I was introduced to the films. We would ride our bikes down to the video rental store. Anyone who doesn't know what that is, that might be listening to that. It is a little store that had kind of a funky odor, but a lot of VHSs on the wall that you could rent and take home and watch as many times as you want within a 48-hour period.
Yeah, I'm flashing back to my neighborhood, Red Rabbit Video.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I had video time.
That thing about the smell was universal.
It literally was. I'm across the pond, and I know exactly the smell you're talking about.
Sure.
It was the only location in town other than a strip club that had a ton of flashing bulbs out on the front windows. And so I remember I remember renting things like Child's Play and Friday the 13th, and then Alien showed up in sort of like my rental criteria. And when I was introduced to that and put 2 and 2 together, I started watching the rest of the series, and I've been in love with the Alien franchise ever since.
Nice.
It's such a cool introduction to the series to go comics first.
That really is, yeah. And we're talking like the black and white, like
we're talking black and white Hicks and Newt. Yeah.
Billy and
Billy and Wilkes, right?
Wilkes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can appreciate that change after Alien 3 came out. Yeah. But regardless of how many name changes you make, that entire series is about an alien infestation on Earth, and you can't change that. So, that's where I was introduced, and I still have those 6 issues bagged and boarded in new bags, of course, but I still got them in my collection. Wow. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I don't think I've got like some early, like the early Dark Horse collections of books 2 and 3. And, but I don't think I don't have any of the single issues of those original Dark Horse years at all.
Yeah. I've always collected those single issues, or the floppies, as I like to call them these days. Mm. But, Yeah, I'd say I'm more into the Aliens and Predator comic books than I am, I would say it goes comics, then films, novels, video games for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comics are a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to digging into more of those old Dark Horse books. I mean, we did Pig recently, but,
those are great. And, I think, after moving around for a while in like my early 20s, Fire and Stone really brought me back in.
Sure.
I was a little hiatus away from the comics back then, but that series just, it just had me going.
Yeah, we got to get back to that. We're waiting until we get into our Predator and Alien versus Predator segments on the show. We've been dragging this Resurrection section out for like half a year.
Yeah, a long time. It's taken us a lot longer than we had planned. Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. I enjoy Resurrection, and I think I'm going to swing back to that toward the end of this conversation, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I got some thoughts about that as well. So,
and now you've had Uncivil War released, and that takes place after the Eureka crash from Resurrection. So now you've got something to add on to your Resurrection stint.
Yeah,
we'll get to it eventually, but we have, I believe, one more thing on the docket for our Resurrection section, and then I believe after that we're moving to Predator, or are we moving to AVP? I can never remember.
We were going to do a Predator month, but just hitting all the movies, including Prey, one more time. So
I just finished on Civil War before Romulus came out, and not to spoil anything at all, but going from a novel with almost no xenomorphs in it to a movie just chock full of xenomorphs.
Sure.
I was really
I'm only halfway
little
through
kid
the
at the
book.
theater.
I'm only halfway through the book, and like so far, I'm just like something's got to happen at some point. It's a good book. Like I'm enjoying reading it, but I am concerned about the lack of Xenos in it so far. But yeah.
So I don't know, Kenny. Maybe we should add that book on and make Bob read a third novel.
we could. I don't know how much he'd appreciate it, but we could appreciate it if we really wanted to.
He'd never come back.
Maybe we can get him to do Alien Covenant Origins a second time with
again.
Sure.
Who had 15 minutes? 15 minutes.
But I actually had another question that I wanted to ask everyone now that we're all assembled here.
Yeah.
How does everyone here feel about Fede Alvarez?
Before or after this movie?
Just like in general, like when they announced that he was going to be the director and I believe also writer of the next Alien movie, what were your thoughts? What was everyone's opinion like on him and in his professional career up to that point?
Who wants to lead off on this one?
I mean, going into the film, I thought it was a good shout. I thought it was a great shout. I mean, the Evil Dead remake is brilliant. Yeah. It's really good. And Don't Breathe as well is such a good original horror. And very twisted. So you can absolutely see how he got the job, writing and directing an Alien film. I tell you what, after seeing Romulus, you can definitely tell he's an Alien fan. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's something that's been lacking in the franchise is like 100%. A true fan creating an installment. And, my thoughts on Fede prior to seeing Romulus, I think, I would have to echo Tom's sentiments in that, I was expecting Don't Breathe in space. And I feel like, I got that. And I wasn't upset about that. Like I didn't leave the theater going like, oh, that was Don't Breathe in space. I seriously enjoyed it. After the Evil Dead remake, rewatching that after finding out Fede was going to direct was the last time I watched that film. Yeah. And it was just, it's a fun gore fest.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it one of the most bloodiest, it uses the most fake blood in any movie ever type thing or something like that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think it was just trying to make sure it used more fake blood than Evil Dead 1 and 2 combined did.
Yeah.
And it succeeded. Kenny and I have talked about that Evil Dead remake, I don't know, 100 times on this show.
I genuinely think it's like top tier, like top 5, maybe even top 3 best horror remakes ever made, and it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Wow.
I sincerely love that movie with like every cell in my body.
That is quite the pedestal.
Yeah.
And
there are a lot of horror remakes that, I think get just a giant eye roll.
Yes.
But I think you're right about Evil Dead. It was great.
I mean, it's like Neil for sure knows how big of a statement this is, but you guys have listened to the show, so I'm sure you do too. I think it's like about as good as The Thing is.
Yeah.
I think
I genuinely think it's like almost as good as The Thing.
Like outside of the Alien series, like a couple of my favorite horror movies are Funny Games and Martyrs. And when those got American remakes, it was kind of like, I don't know. I just couldn't get on board with them. Mm-hmm. But I would definitely say that you're on track with Evil Dead. And I think that excited me also about Fede directing Romulus.
Yeah.
As far as Don't Breathe is concerned, I think it's a good movie, but it didn't wow me as much as Evil Dead is. It's fun, but it's not a movie that I keep like coming back to. But like he did a good job making it, and you can tell by watching it that this guy knows what he's fucking doing.
Sure.
You know, so like they said, oh yeah, the Evil Dead guy is doing the new Alien movie, and I think I was just like, oh hell yes.
Mm-hmm. I think the Don't Breathe thing, though, I think it's the psychosexual thing. Yeah. I think that's what. Of course, you should direct Alien because this guy's just messed up in the head, like in the best possible way.
Right. Yeah, like the fact that they took that guy and said, "Oh yeah, he's going to be the main character of the second one." I was like, "Why would you do that? What a weird choice."
Mm.
Yeah, but Fede didn't have any. I guess he wrote.
I think he wrote it, but I don't think he directed it.
No, he didn't direct it. I'm looking at his IMDb here, and all of his films or all of his work, I've seen the Evil Dead remake, Evil Dead, and I believe I've seen the one episode of From Dusk Till Dawn, the series that he did, because I think I watched that whole thing. Couldn't tell you which episode it was or tell you anything about that show.
I think me and my missus got about 3 episodes into it and we kind of fell off of it. I don't know if that's for the show.
And then I do just want to mention, because the account kept getting logged into from other countries, I dropped Netflix.
Yeah.
And I just did HBO instead. And I love watching stuff on HBO. But right when I dropped Netflix, Fede's Texas Chainsaw came out, and I have yet to go back in and watch it, despite the reviews it's received. I'm a genuine fan of that entire franchise, so I really want to watch it, and I'm kicking myself for not having done that yet.
I have seen it.
I watched it and fell asleep during it. But that's not a statement on the movie. It's just, I don't know. Like Texas Chainsaw, the whole series. I absolutely love the first one. And that's where that sentence kind of ends. I'm not crazy about any of the follow-ups.
Oh, the next generation, baby. Come on.
I've seen it.
I believe
I've seen every single one.
That's the Matthew McConaughey one, right?
That's right.
Okay, yes. All right.
Right. That's the one where someone's got like a robot leg or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Corey talks about it a whole lot on They Made Another One. So.
Sure, yeah.
Sounds like a great film.
But yeah, his Chainsaw movie, I've seen it. I watched it like within a week or so after it came out, just because I was like, oh, I have a feeling a bunch of people are going to be talking about this one, because I'm not that huge of a Chainsaw guy. And it's like, the movie is fine. It didn't wow me. I thought the ending was really stupid. And the movie makes a couple of what I thought were really dumb, like weird narrative choices. But there are a couple of scenes that are really cool. There's a scene where a whole bunch of people are trapped on a bus, and then Leatherface gets on the bus. And you can imagine what happens from that. And that was really cool. And I enjoyed that a lot.
Is he getting on the bus because of these people when he wants to murder them, or is he got some shopping
correct,
to do?
yes.
Or
His car was in the shop.
Yeah,
There.
it's like, yeah.
I'm just trying to get to Aldi, guys.
But like I said, there were a couple of parts that I really liked that I remember very fondly. There were also a couple of parts that I really thought were stupid as hell. And so I came out of the movie going, it was fine.
Well, he just wrote that. He didn't direct it.
All right.
I think
he's a director, right? And like when he's on the writing and directing, it seems like the stuff is pretty successful overall. He's a kind of, he's one of those directors, I think.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about Fede post Romulus?
I still like him.
I still think he's got it.
Yeah, so it's impossible to not compare this to Evil Dead because it's him stepping into an established franchise, right? And while Evil Dead is billed as a remake, if you kind of squint, it sort of still fits into it can act as a sequel, like a disconnected sequel as well. Something that they then built on more when they did Evil Dead Rise. So kind of the same sort of setup as this, where he's obviously a fan of the franchise, right? In both instances, he's working in a lot of references and callbacks and things. And like, we've talked a lot as a culture about like the fan directors, the people who grew up on Star Wars now making movies, and J.J. Abrams making Star Wars movies, however you feel about that, or Joss Whedon, making an Avengers film, blah, blah, blah. Less we say about him, the better, honestly.
Agreed.
Moving on.
Yeah. Fede is the first time I've been like watching he's a fan director to me also. And I think he's doing a better job than most of them,
Yeah, I'd agree.
And maybe it's just because he's sticking to horror primarily, but also, but like at the same time, a lot of references in this that I don't think necessarily had to be there. So many to the point where it started to become distracting for me.
Yeah,
agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
first, I think it took me out a little bit to hear some of the quotes.
Yeah. First spoiler here, when Andy says the "get away from her, you bitch" line, I about rolled my eyes.
My audience, well, not my audience, but the audience in the cinema, they all laughed. And at my initial reaction was like, oh, okay, they're enjoying it. But then, you kind of walk away from it. It's like, but that's not supposed to be the reaction. Do you know what I mean? You're supposed to be like, yeah, get away from her, you bitch. Yeah. Right.
You're supposed to be cheering. And it's the fact that I think he tagged the "you bitch" line on after he had already killed the xenomorph.
Yeah.
That's what made it like a serious, or not a serious, but like that's what made it specifically a reference that we're all supposed to point at and go, oh, he said the thing, right?
I think for me personally, I think it would have worked better if there had been some sort of theme going throughout the whole film where Andy thinks it's wrong to swear or something, and they're all just like, you can say it, and then like he says that get away from her, and then the pause, and then the bitch at the end. It still would have been eye rolling, but you can kind of understand it. But like it just felt out of place, and it was total fan service, and it was eye rolling, and
dude should have dropped a dad joke in that moment, right?
On the way home, I do remember mentioning that line to my wife in the car and being like, I can't believe they reused that line. And she's like, she's trying to explain it away for me to like make me happy that the line was in there. She was like, well, Bjorn kept calling him a bitch in the movie.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
I was like, oh, I guess you're right. Like Bjorn did say bitch a lot.
But another layer of it that really irritates me is that he's taken that line away from Ripley, because in chronological order, Andy has said it before Ripley says it in Aliens. So they kind of, that really irks me a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I know it's a nitpicky thing, but it irks me.
What if he had just like dropped down? That was on the elevator, right? And he was like, why did the cowboy get a dachshund? And then he opens fire and blows the thing away, and then just goes, people kept telling him to get a long little doggy.
Well, the thing of it is that I mean, I'll admit I didn't have a problem with that line being in the movie. I was like, oh, that's fun. And then I just kind of completely forgot that it even happened to begin with until we started talking about it again. Like, I didn't really like think about it or put any extra thought into it. But like, honestly, if they just hadn't had him say, you bitch at the end, it would have worked way better. Because
100%.
like his entire thing is that, you know, his entire drive for the movie, I have to do what's best for her. I have to guard her. I have to protect her. So he grabs the alien and shoots it and goes, stay away from her.
Yes.
That would have made sense.
And that's how we know that like Andy is back too.
That would have fit perfectly into the movie, and we still would have been like, oh, that's a reference to the line from Aliens.
Right.
But it wouldn't have felt, I don't want to say lame, but it wouldn't have been an obvious pin in like, hey, remember this? Because it would have made more sense in the context. Yeah.
Because the scene itself, like the shot of him like riding this alien down the elevator shaft while like throwing all these rounds of bullets into its face, that's a fucking cool shot anyway. So you don't need the bitch bit at the end because it rocks anyway. Like, it was cool anyhow. And I agree with you, Kenny. You should have just said get away with her, because it does kind of go with his program.
I mean, I that's how we see for sure that Andy is back, right?
Yeah.
Because like even though she like took the chip out and all that stuff, or the little whatever it is, the little additive, they're just trying to escape at that point, which is something that he would have been doing either way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's it's an important moment. It should have been a more personal reference or something.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Mike, thanks for laughing at my dachshund joke.
Oh, it's a great joke.
You're the only one. Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of fan service in this movie, but there was also a lot of like ingenuitive new ideas and technology, and
it really walked the line in a better way than the other recent movies of kind of feeling like classic Alien and Aliens, especially on the colony, but not feeling dated either.
Right.
It sort of walks that alien isolation line, where you just sort of accept that this is just how technology has evolved in this world and in colonization and everything, as opposed to feeling like you're looking at something out of date.
Yeah, from the start of the movie, you're getting those original font credits.
Yes,
you're getting that pan through space, and then immediately you're hit with that retrofuturism look of that echo probe and all those lights and the panels and the sounds. I mean, it just, my eyes were so wide and my jaw was dropped to the seat. And I was just like reveling in all of it. I loved every second of the visual effects in this movie.
Yeah, except with one exception, I'm with you there.
Yes, you're right.
Well,
you're right.
Then in that case, let's just get down to it. Let's pull the fucking Band-Aid off. Let's go around the table. What did everyone think about the movie?
Oh, okay.
Let's start with our guests.
Sure, put them in the hot seat.
What do you want? Do you want a score or?
Just like in general, did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think? What was your opinion of the movie overall?
If giving it a number score helps, then go with that.
Yeah, if that's how you want to do it, that's fine. If not, that's fine too.
Well, I'm going to reserve from getting a number score until I've seen it another time, I think, because I think I went into this film and I was just like, I wanted to take it all in. And sometimes like, I just kind of, I want to see it again so that I can kind of just soak it in a bit more.
Yeah, we won't hold you to this. You're allowed to change your opinion again, because recency bias is a real thing, right?
Next week I'll tell you I hate it. It's fine.
Sure.
But I mean, I walked out of the cinema happy, like I enjoyed it. I just don't think I loved it as much as I hoped I would.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like, I was kind of hoping that I would come out and be like, "Oh my god, that was insane." But instead I was like, you know what it does right. And I think that's when it's not trying to do the fan service and it is trying to do its own thing. That film is amazing. Like, it's so good. But when the fan service bits come in and the deep fake bits, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point or other, yeah, I think that's what kind of takes me out. I was like constantly in and out of it, which is why I kind of really want to see it again and soon. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I just didn't love it as much as I hoped I would.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay. How about you, Mike?
So going into it, I had my xenomorph popcorn head on my arm. We had our alien shirts on. We had our reserved seats. We have a good, view of the screen. And I was, we were on the edges of our seats almost the entire film. And then the final 10 minutes of the movie, I think I left the cinema going from 10 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. And then after sleeping on it, I kind of went back up to 9 out of 10. I think I was able to, look at it from a different perspective and say okay, I think I enjoyed it more than I did. And I didn't let the sort of there are two main parts of the film that I think pulled me away or pulled me out of really enjoying it. But, yeah, and we'll get into those for sure. But I think finally I would say 9 out of 10 for me.
Nice. All right, Kenny, this was your question, so you're going next.
Okay. Tom's opinion that he had going into the movie, what he thought he was going to think about it.
Yeah.
Is what I think about it. My brain fucking melted. I had some of the best times I've ever had in a movie theater. Easily hardcore 10 out of 10. I walked out of that theater going, this is the best movie in the entire series since the first one. Easily and by a wide margin. I fucking loved it. I had a great time. I ate all that shit up and wanted to go back for more the moment I walked out of the theater.
Amazing.
I absolutely loved it, dude.
Wow, dude. All right.
So you didn't mind it then?
Yeah.
I did not mind it at all. Yes, that is correct. $12 well spent on that ticket for sure.
All right. My turn.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know how I feel about this movie, and I'm going to talk it out here to try to figure it out because I've seen it twice now. After I left the theater, I was thinking, I got to see that again to really figure out how I feel. And then I watched it again this morning. We won't discuss how. And sorry, hold on. Getting a little choked up there thinking about it.
It's emotional.
Yeah. I do this thing. I can think of two other times that this has happened for me with movies. One of them, the first Alien versus Predator movie, and the other time, the recent Mortal Kombat movie, where I kept watching them over and over because I was like, there's something in here that should be appealing to me. There's cool stuff happening. Why isn't it all coming together for me? And I'm not putting Romulus in the camp with those two very average movies, but I'm getting the same sort of feeling where I'm like, a lot of this worked for me, but why am I not walking out of this theater, walking out of this viewing experience, feeling like this is the movie it was supposed to be, right? If I had to give it a number, I'm probably giving it a 7.5 overall.
That's pretty much where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to your camp for sure. And I can't figure out why. I can't figure out what the issue is for me. Because I was also eating up the slop the whole movie. I'll just say it now. When that Prometheus sting came in, I was like...
no joke, man. I was in the theater and he said, the Promethean fire or whatever. And literally in the theater, I put my head in my hands and went, oh, fuck, Neil's going to be so insufferable about this.
When he said... when Rook crawled to the computer and said, "Mother, what's the status of compound Z01?" I was like, "It's going to be Prometheus goo." I know it. We got some Prometheus goo in this fucking movie. Hell yeah!
Yeah, but when he said,
I don't even like that. When he said
Plagiaris Prepotens, I lit up.
Mate, I'm glad you brought that up because Cold Forge is now canon, right? Alex White's novels are now canon, surely.
I mean, technically, Cold Forge takes place much longer at around the Aliens time frame, and that as if I'm remembering correctly, Blue created that name specifically in her lab.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
But Alex White is super approachable online through social media. And so I sent them an Instagram message and was like, they mentioned Plagiaris praepotens on the screen. And, they just replied saying it was fucking great to hear it, to see it. And, I thought that was so cool.
So was that more like an Easter egg versus like establishing canon?
I think so. I mean, I consider it canon, but I think the time frame of it doesn't necessarily work out. But I would have to reread it to see if that was a name pulled from a file or if Blue came up with it.
So I haven't read Cold Forge in several years. Kenny and I are lovers, not experts, right? What is the Plagiaris praepoten, or however you pronounced it? I'm bad with words.
So they say that when the face hugger initiates with its host, that it's not exactly like an ovipositor. It's releasing essentially like a pathogen that then melds with your DNA. So what they did in the Cold Forge was capture that in a host's chest prior to it being able to establish itself with the host DNA. And then saying that this could be the answer to solving all of humanity's medical issues. And the main character Blue had their own issue that they were trying to solve with it.
So this is
I
like
think in a roundabout way as well, it also makes the Kenner toy line canon.
Sure, the DNA reflex stuff. Absolutely. Gorilla aliens and
it all.
It's all canon to me, baby. I eat it all up. I'm like, it's one giant universe. I don't care what anyone says.
That's how to do it. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So in this, it's kind of like a something naturally occurring that is also maybe what the engineers were extracting.
And I think from the expanded universe, which is where the comics and novels fall into, versus the film franchise, obviously anything in the film franchise is canonical.
Right.
And so they sort of, they're bringing these phrases and theory sort of into the mainstream of the Alien universe.
Gotcha. Can we talk more about Compound Z-01 while we're here, guys? Can we talk a little bit more about this?
Let's talk about it.
All right.
I can hear Kenny rolling his eyes.
Like I said, even in the theater, I knew you were gonna want to. So go off, dude.
So in the when Rook is talking about this, right? He specifically says this is something that they extract from the face huggers.
Mm-hmm.
And that, he mentions, they extract it and he does some analysis on it and it builds that urn looking thing on the computer. Right. Mm-hmm. And then he says he says they synthesized it from these things. And that this is what Wayland was searching for, this Prometheus's fire thing. And like that using that term Prometheus's fire, that felt like it, fan service to me also, as opposed to, Peter Wayland was just looking for origins of humanity, right? Mm-hmm. So that didn't really completely line up for me, but it did lend a lot of credence to my theory, which seems like I'm alone on this. Mike, maybe you know better. I've talked a million times about how I don't think that David created the xenomorph, which is what everyone sort of walked away from. Everyone that I know sort of walked away from Covenant thinking was the case.
I subscribe to the fact that David didn't create the xenomorph. I think he created a xenomorph, but he didn't create the xenomorph.
So my feelings are that, the xenomorph exists out there, and that the engineers sort of did what Weyland-Yutani is always trying to do and successfully weaponized it. And that's, they extracted the pathogen or created the pathogen. And what David did was sort of reverse engineer what the engineers did to kind of, recreate a form of the xenomorph. That's different as we see it in Covenant, right? It's not exactly the same creature, life cycle, birth cycle, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like it's trying to point us in that direction by saying that they pulled this thing out of a face hugger. I guess you could read it either way, as like the pathogen was used to create these bioweapons still, but that just doesn't make as much sense to me, and I don't like it as much. So
I guess, I mean, Rook's, if you believe what Rook said, then what Rook was saying was, you know, humanity wasn't built for space travel, and this is the key to making them right.
Yeah, he says we can't wait for evolution any longer or something like that.
Right. So if you believe Rook, then they're utilizing the xenomorphs for medical purposes rather than weaponizing it.
Right. That's the goal.
Right. So I guess I like that they, you know, there has been so many installments in the franchise where it's like weaponize the xenomorph.
Yeah.
And, you know, there have been a few in the recent past that have used it as like, medical research. Right. And I think I like that angle better.
I do. I agree.
Yeah. We've seen enough of them trying to turn it into a bioweapon, I think. Sure.
Yeah.
So it is nice to see another use for the xenomorph. It's, you know, it still never goes well, but the other thing I was thinking about, because he says that Rook says that they synthesized the breeders, the face huggers, from the big chap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the only thing that they recovered, the only xenomorph specimen they recovered at that point. So that's telling me that Covenant short film where it's David transmitting all of his data to Weyland-Yutani, like they must have gotten that. Right. Like I feel like they're using, and that's how they know about what Peter Weyland was up to. And like, this is all, you know, headcanon right now, of course, but it does sort of track that like David's experiments are what leads them to being able to synthesize xenomorphs on this space station.
It does connect some dots.
Right.
Yeah. They were very vague about that process.
Yeah, I think they were vague on purpose because, you know, Prometheus and Covenant not super well received.
Sure.
By the fandom, or I think by anybody, honestly. But
yeah,
that's all I got on the pathogen for now. Kenny, you can you know, put your headphones back on.
I was listening. Don't worry. I was paying attention the whole time.
What did you guys think of Rook, of the special cameo in this film?
It's funny you say that. I was just about to say, speaking of, what's everyone's thoughts on Rook? And then you beat me to it. I've had less of a problem with it as time has gone on since I've seen the movie. When he first showed up, I legit crossed my arms and went, and sat back in my chair when he showed up in the movie the first time. And so like, it's one of those things where like every time they cut back to him, I was like, this fucking guy. But as time has gone on, I'm like, he doesn't have as big of a part in the movie. Like thinking about it now, he doesn't have that much screen time. I realize now that my main problem with it is that the CG just doesn't look that good.
It's terrible. I've seen TikTok do it better.
Yeah, like the CG on him just doesn't look that good. And it's like, well, actually, that's my second biggest problem. My biggest problem is that it didn't need to look like Ian Holm.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it didn't need to look like, it didn't really need to look like anyone specific, but there are like other people that are still alive that have played synths in previous Alien movies. They could have brought back any of them, but instead they brought back the one guy that's dead. I will say, just so everyone knows, there was no AI, there was no deep faking. It was CG overlay on a guy doing the acting and doing an Ian Holm impression. And in case anyone was wondering, yes, they did get permission from his widow to do it.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad they went about it the correct way. So So yeah, Ian Holm provided, facial and vocal reference, and a guy named Daniel Betts did the performance and like the facial and vocal performance. So they did some kind of, he did an impression, but then they matched it up to Ian Holm's voice because it really did sound like him. This guy's an incredible
it sounded like him.
impersonator. But I liked the inclusion. I didn't think it wasn't super jarring to me. The reveal was handled pretty well too, I think, where when you first see him, you don't recognize him because he's all acid melted and everything.
For sure.
But, and it makes sense for the time, right? We're only 20 years after Alien. So this is a popular model of synthetic. It a little bit made me think like, so they just have a whole bunch of these guys programmed to be science officers. Yet the crew of the Nostromo was caught off guard by him being a synth,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, it's fine.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, on one hand, that's a good point. On the other hand, it's not really that big of a deal. That is kind of a nitpicking thing, but
it is.
That is a legitimate point, though.
It's completely believable that they've never encountered this model of synth before. It's not like they're running commercials for them. So
I suppose I could kind of go two ways with it. And one is that, I think it would have been fine to have that vocal reference without the facial reference.
Yes.
Maybe could have been a little bit more destroyed.
I
think I was immediately looking at the face and saying like, that doesn't look right to me.
It takes you out of the film.
But then on the other hand, I'm like, but every Alien movie has its own little like quirky CG moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so true. I don't know. It's kind of like a page in the book of Alien for sure.
I'm immediately thinking of the runner jumping out of the molten lead in Alien.
Or the Xeno climbing into the escape pod in Resurrection.
Yes.
I think for me, the character of Rook, I think I would have preferred it almost if, like Mike says, when the body was more damaged, but it was missing its head.
Yeah.
And then they somehow managed to connect the synth up to the computers and whatnot, and it's talking to them via a speaker system.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then all the way through it, you're just kind of like, okay, it's just an AI trying to help them out or whatnot. And then when Kay gets back to the, I forget the name of their ship, but when she gets back to that ship, and then
the Corbalon.
The Corbalon, thank you very much.
Corbalon 4, I think.
I think so, yeah.
When she gets onto that ship after she's injected herself at this point, isn't she? Or she's just about to. Then on the screen, bring Ian Holmes' face on. Because when it was on the screen, it didn't bother me. It was just when it was, the actual android. But when his face was on the screen, it didn't bother me. That looked fine.
I will
agree.
Also,
with that, it would have been another kind of like shock reveal as well. It's like, oh my God, it was, not Ash, but do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's Rook, and Rook is an Ash model,
Sure. I will say, though, it is weird to have the character modeled after Ash, but name him Rook, which is a Bishop reference, not an Ash reference.
Not even just a Bishop reference. A Bishop reference we got in, I think, one of the short stories in Bug Hunt.
The one about Bishop. Yeah.
Right.
But it's like if they were going to call him Rook, yet another excuse. Just make him look like Lance Henriksen. It's fine. Plus, he's still alive, so you could just bring him in to do it and then digitally de-age him. It's fine.
Right.
That's not bad.
In the Out of the Shadows audio drama, we had Rutger Hauer voice Ash, and how cool would it have been
to have a Rutger Hauer?
Rutger Hauer. Yeah.
That would have been cool. Yeah.
But doing an Ian Holm impression.
But
they're like, similar models. They're the same model, just and different. I don't know.
That would also give credit to the theory that Blade Runner happens in the same universe, right?
Yeah.
So we get a lot of YouTube videos about that.
Sure.
One thing I thought was interesting about the Rook character is while in Alien, which I watched last night, Ash is trying to get the organism on board. And in this, at least at the beginning, Rook is trying not to let them escape with it and contaminate the ship, after Navarro gets face hugged. He's kind of like taking an opposite role on the surface, compared to what Ash was doing. Obviously, we know that's because he needs, his mission is to get the pathogen back, so he doesn't want to lose everybody to this organism. But just at first blush, it's like, oh, this is Rook. This is like a Walter David situation where they have different goals and outlooks, even though they look the same. I love the defining synthetic relationship in Alien continuity being Walter and David, of course.
Now, just imagine if they had
Guys, that was a joke. You can
in.
laugh when I say things like that. It's fine.
But dude, just imagine if they had brought him in to play the synth in this movie.
I half thought there was going to be some kind of like a David pop-up. I was like, would they?
But
I'll do the fingering.
While we're speaking of synths, though, I gotta say, Andy, to me, MVP of the fucking movie.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, for sure.
God damn it. He was so fucking good.
Like, everyone in it was good, even though, like, Rain and Andy were really the only characters that had, like, characterization in the movie. I was absolutely blown away by David Johnson. He knocked that shit out of the fucking park.
It was his movie. It was his movie.
Captivating performance, just
so good.
Yeah, the way he shifts from the sort of broken down Andy we meet at the beginning of the film to when he gets his firmware upgraded and everything,
and snatches that face hugger out of the air.
That scene.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah.
And he's just like, my reflexes are being rebuilt as we speak. So
Like, normally, I've gone on record before that I've never been the hugest fan of, like, the alien story trope of, like, having a synth who doesn't have the rest of the crew members' best interest in mind, and so they're kind of like doing their own thing or whatever. Right. But this worked for me a lot better in this situation because Andy was open and upfront about being like, I have different goals than you, but I will still do what I can to help you within the parameters of achieving my goal. Like, he wasn't secretive and sneaking around about it. He was like, this is the fucking deal. And that was very refreshing to me.
And that's the Andy still showing through, right? Even though he had new objectives. But he was, whatever's in the best interest of the company, I think it's, look, we all know that I want to kiss Michael Fassbender on the mouth.
That is correct, yes.
But this, like, and Fassbender's David was, like, incredibly, like, his performance was incredibly nuanced, right? Especially in Prometheus. He got a little over the top in Covenant. Like, let's be real.
He did, yes.
His performance as a synthetic in Prometheus was great. But David Johnson fucking blows it out of the water, in my opinion. Just a completely different way to go with it. But, God, yeah, he absolutely carried the whole film for me.
It's all of it. Is the facial expressions, the mannerisms, the way he holds his hands by his side, all of it is just like, you're so obvious. And I mean, the other thing as well is when we all watched the first trailer, when he came on for the run bit, everyone straight away was like, that's the movie Synth.
Yes.
And I think that is a testament to his acting ability of playing a synth, because we instantly knew he was the synth. And that just says, because he nailed the part, that's why. It wasn't like a shock or anything. It was just like, it's because he's nailed it. That's why. And I say, he was brilliant.
That scene when he's rebooting and he just like looks up and freezes and his eyes roll back and show the Weyland-Yutani logos on it. Yeah. That was the dopest thing I've ever seen.
I did really think that was cool as hell, yes.
Yeah, it looked like one eye had a Weyland-Yutani logo and the other may have had like a serial number or a model number on it. But
that was such a cool detail.
Because even when he was upgraded, he was still Andy. Yeah. So he went from playing essentially like acting like a child to an adult to a child again.
Yeah. And he had that. Go on, sorry.
No, and I really enjoyed that sort of like variation in his acting, which was so fun to watch.
He had that moment when Bjorn's and Navarro are trying to get back to the ship and he's trying to stop him, where he says like to Rain, he's like, you'll finally stop seeing me as a child, Just there's this like, he's like a real, even after his upgrade, he's still like so, God, this is the lamest thing to say. He's so fucking human still as a synthetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody post online after the movie came out something to the effect of, finally, this movie gives us the autistic robot representation we've all been looking for. And it made me laugh.
The other moment when, you know, he's learned that he can't go with them to Ivaga 3, right? And it's when he makes the decision to leave Kay behind, I think. Mm-hmm. And she's
I think so, yeah.
That was so we learned that Bjorn's father, I think, was killed in a mine because a synthetic chose to save a bunch, like sealed him up in there because of toxic gases or something.
Sacrificed a few to save the many.
Sacrifice 3 to save 12, I believe is what they say. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, Rain everyone's like incensed at that idea. And then she's going to leave him behind because he can't go to Ivaga 3. And then when he leaves Kay behind, he turns to her. She's like, "How could you do that?" And he's like, "What? Leave someone behind?" And it's just so personal.
It's cold, man. It's like, damn.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to ask real quick. When I was watching the movie, I didn't catch it. What was the reason that she couldn't bring him to Yavaga?
It's a non-Wayland-Yutani colony, so synths just aren't allowed.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
And he's a Wayland-Yutani model. So
I just happened to miss it. I must have been like crunching on popcorn or something. So I got
just a bunch of haters over there on Ivaga 3.
That's fair.
Yeah, man. What do you think of the rest of the cast? What do we think about Kaylee Spaney as Rain? Let's start with our heroine here.
I mean, it's impossible to compare to Ripley, which I find frustrating because I think she did a great job. I liked her. I've got no problems with her, but it's just impossible to not compare her to Ripley. There's something about alien movies that the lead has to be a female all the time, and you know, and in that way they kind of set themselves up to fail because you just have to compare it to Ripley all the time. And so I kind of think that's not a bit fair, and it's not fair to do that, but I think she did a great job. I liked her.
I liked her too. There was instances in it, you know, maybe it was just because she had so many scenes that were referencing what Ripley does. Mm-hmm. Thinking of the elevator machine gun, you know, exiting the elevator, like that was straight out of Aliens.
Yeah.
Or like when she's in the EVA suit at the end trying to, you know, battle something we'll talk about later. She resembles a young Sigourney Weaver in a lot of ways too, and that feels like intentional casting to me. But she's not the same character, and she doesn't try to be Ellen Ripley either, which I appreciate.
Yeah,
right.
And that's why it's unfair. That's what I mean. It's just like she's not Ripley. She's like miles away from Ripley. She's not in no way Ripley, but you can't help but compare.
I mean, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's performance as Ripley is so specific that by the time we get to Alien Resurrection, Ripley isn't even Ripley anymore.
Yeah,
you know? Like
that's true.
It's just like specific magic in those first, I'll say, 2 performances that just were never able to be recaptured again, no matter what. But I do think she did a great job, and her relationship with Andy was very believable and very strong. The only choice I think was a bad one was when she told the pregnant injured woman to get herself to the ship. So she, I mean, I understand she loves Andy and it was not an easy choice for her, but just something about that. It was like, maybe you should make sure this person is safe before you, because they got a long way to go, you know, and they're injured. And
Kay did not look good.
No.
She did not look good.
And what's wild about that is that had she not injected herself, she probably would have made it, because like she was already on the ship. All she had to do was nothing and she would have been fine.
Probably.
I am neutral about their individual performances, but it's the group dynamic that I thought was really awesome, just like I did in Evil Dead, just like I did in Don't Breathe.
100%.
And I think Fede is really good at writing and directing that group dynamic.
Yeah, when they're all kind of chilling out at the start, you kind of feel like there is a history between them all. That, you know, all these stories that they're all talking about and whatnot, that those stories have weight because they feel like a real group.
there was very little establishing the relationships, right? We just sort of understood them all right away. The only thing that they had to like explain was how Bjorn feels about, or why he feels the way he does about synthetics. Everyone else was just, it was like tuning into like a Friends rerun, right?
Mm-hmm. I got to mention that video game Andy was playing while they're all scheming.
Yes.
Loved that.
Sure.
Loved it.
Was it the same as the arcade game from Alien Resurrection? Was that another reference?
I didn't see the same one, no. I didn't see like a name on it, but we got a few shots of like what the game looked like while he was playing it, which is really cool. I love those little details and those little aspects of like a real life universe.
Definitely.
Someone out there will make it. You know it. You know it.
And then we'll have to cover it on the show.
I'm really pulling for like a art and making of for this book because I love all that behind the scenes info and the extra, like the official names for devices and ships and things that they have that you don't really get from the film. Which kind of brings me to one talking point is that the soundtracks have always been, when I like try to create or edit a page for Xenopedia, and there's things in the film that maybe weren't mentioned by name. Sometimes those things are given names in the soundtracks. Okay. And in Benjamin Wallfish's soundtrack, I forget what track number it is, but one of them is called Chrysalis. And so I think that's the name we're giving these, the chrysalises that they use to transform from a chest burster to a fully xenomorph.
That was interesting. That was a scene that stuck out to me because I was like, there's so much stuff we haven't covered. There's so much stuff I haven't read even outside of the show. Has that ever been shown before?
That reminded me of the hive in the Nostromo from the director's cut.
Yeah.
The whole egg morphing theory and the thing behind that's what that reminded me of, those pods or the chrysalis, as I'm led to believe is what they're being called.
Okay. Cause it was still locked up on the ship. It wasn't it was on their ship. Right. So, do you think, is that how they hatch like in a large nest, or how they grow like in a large nest also, do you think? Because it feels like we would have seen a lot of evidence of that. Or is this like some part of the, like a protective process when it's just like a lone xenomorph over on its own?
I had this thought myself because I was just like, in Aliens, you would have seen some of these pods. Yeah. You would have seen it. Like, there was plenty of Xenos on LV, so we would have seen it. But I don't know. I mean... Yeah, I don't know how you explain that one. They might eat it. I don't know. Like, there are some animals that kind of eat these things as a way of sustenance or something.
I'm sure there's a way to explain it away. Like maybe there's some genetic difference in these since they were sort of, made in a lab, right? Who knows? Maybe it's just something we've never seen, but it stuck out to me because we finished our Sea of Sorrows read through, and there's that scene where like a burster pops out of a lady, and then it sort of becomes this like mid-sized adolescent xenomorph that then kills a whole bunch of people. And there was, so I just have assumed up to this point that there's just like a natural grow cycle, not like a second, cocooning thing. If you include a human being the first cocooning process.
Butterfly.
There you go. But it's something that I think could very easily be explained away, or just be a thing that we haven't seen before, or, so it doesn't stop me. Right. But chrysalis is a good name for that, because I was just calling it like the rib womb.
That's a good name for it. As long as they don't George Lucas it and go back and CGI it all into aliens and whatnot, it's fine.
Or change its name from Jizz to Jazz or Juzz or whatever the fuck they did.
It's Jats now.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, it's Jats. Get it right.
Jats, okay.
Jizz or bust.
That's right. That's right. Shout out to the guy with the display name Jizz Truther in one of our Discords.
One of the Discord servers were. Speaking of that chrysalis, though, that acid death was fucking rad.
Yeah, that was gnarly as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
When he sticks the shock stick or whatever in there,
prodding that,
and then just
One thing that I must have like not caught or missed or whatever is like he's lying there like getting all the acid dripping on him and he's melting away.
Yeah.
But like why right at the very end did his chest explode? What did I miss from there?
Oh, that was acid hitting his chest and just like melting right through where his heart is.
Oh, okay. I thought there was like a pop or like a boom sound or something.
No,
I think it was just
thought-
a considerably bigger blob of acid that hit him.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, I must have like blinked or briefly looked away or something because I was like, did something fall out of that womb and land into his chest and I just missed it or something? But okay, I got you.
It was kind of sudden because he was kind of like reeling around on the floor, like in a lot of pain, and then the next minute he was dead. But yeah, I think what it was there was just a bigger blob of acid that just happened to land pretty much right where his heart is.
That was
that
was a wild scene.
Also, in a semi-related thing, I'd like to point out, I like how the chest burster in this movie literally just looks like a miniature regular xenomorph.
Mm-hmm.
Like, normally chest bursters look a little bit different. And so because like, when describing the creature's life cycle, we delineate between chest burster and xenomorph. So it's easy to think of it as two different creatures. But in this, the chest burster literally just looks like a miniature xenomorph. And I was like, yeah, why not? That makes sense to me.
Well, going off of that, I would like to just say that we have probably just seen the best looking xenomorphs in an alien film since the first one.
Yeah.
Like I think those were showstoppers.
Yeah, I'd agree to that.
Practical effects in this film were class. They were so good. The xenomorphs were brilliant. And the face huggers.
God damn it.
I mean, I think I said to you before you went into the film, I was just like, it's just nice to finally see the face huggers not just be a shoot and leave kind of thing.
I like how in a lot of ways they're the primary alien enemy. In the movie.
100%. That scene where they have to creep through the room.
It rules.
It is so good. I wish it was just a little bit longer, just a smidge.
Yeah,
but I loved that. That was so good.
He told them not to get goosebumps, and by the end, we were both sitting there. We both had goosebumps.
Yeah. It's not. He wasn't just talking to Rain and what's his face. He was talking to the audience. It's just like
my one complaint, which I suppose is a relatively a minor one, but like my one complaint about it is that I really thought the facehugger in this movie looked like they were just RC cars with moving parts. Like when they moved around, the legs would move spider-like, but like to my brain, it didn't look like the moving legs is what was creating the locomotion. It looked to me kind of like they were zipping around on wheels. Like that looked a little bit fake to me, but like I just liked having them around, liked having that big, huge horde of them. I liked seeing them so much because they do look fucking creepy.
My favorite scene might have been the first facehugger scene when they're in the cryo room with the water on the ground
and they keep on jumping at Bjorn and he just whacks him out of the air.
Yeah, when the temperature's rising and we see these things just sort of breaking out of their blister packaging.
Yeah,
and just stalking through the water and like yanking Bjorn down and busting through the door. Like that was, we saw that in the teaser, just a clip of that. And I was like, that scene's going to be good. And
dude, that shot where the door is almost entirely closed and just has that one little split in it. Yeah. And then all the fucking face hugger legs are sticking out of the door. I was like, that is so fucking gross. Dude.
And no matter how many times I saw it in the trailer, the way it latched onto her face, I see it in every single trailer, but I still just love the way that one face hugger just takes her down.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Yeah, honestly, I think that scene was so good for me. It was hard for any of the following scenes to sort of live up to it. It's kind of like in Jason X, where the first kill is just better than all the rest of the kills in the movie.
That is true. The first one is the best one. Yes,
and it also involves cryo something or other.
It sure does.
And in that scene, you're seeing them pull the cryo tubes and learning at that moment that, this is pulling from the cryo of these facehugger cases.
That was keeping them down, which
We
another thing I liked about it.
Rising.
That's another thing I liked about it. They managed to have people get face hugged, but not have the face huggers come out of ovomorphs like they did in every single other movie. They mixed it up a little.
We didn't see a single egg, did we?
Yeah, like I appreciate that. We do see one egg near the end of the movie, but like I appreciate how they mixed it up like that. You know?
Yeah, no, I do you know what? I hadn't really twigged on that until you pointed it out now. But yeah, you're right. It is better. It's good to see it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And according to the NECA accessory pack for Alien Romulus, those green cases are called cryoframe cases.
Okay. Cryoframe cases. They're like wrapped up like bologna at the store.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're in blister packs. That is a very good way to describe it.
If only those packs were that easy to open in real life. Am I right? God, you gotta get scissors out. But yeah, no, I'm terrified of face huggers. Like that's the scariest shit to me in the series. And you know, the scene in Aliens with Ripley and Newt, like, you know, when Burke throws the face huggers in there, that was burned into my mind at a young age. And this was like a better, more scary version of that scene. That scene still is really strong, just to be clear. But like, I'm glad I have two things to be terrified of as I'm falling asleep now.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone on record before that I am very arachnophobic, so I don't love having the face huggers around either. Yeah. But like, you know, they look cool in this movie. They use them to great effect. And so even though I was like, ugh, every time they showed up, it was still cool to have them around. Because again, most movies don't have them take such a major role in how the movie works, you know?
Yeah, they kind of show up, they do their thing, and then it's, you know, forgotten about.
Yeah, and then that's it, yeah.
Mostly there.
They never even call you back.
That's right.
Right.
And they had their own coloring.
Right.
And I wish there was a bit more background as to what created that coloring. Yeah. And I think maybe, or I'm hopeful that this one-shot Alien Romulus comic coming out in October, which Fede was apparently involved in, gives some more information about, you know, the cloning process. And I guess I'm just misunderstanding. Were they testing on rats, or was rat DNA used like frog DNA was used in Jurassic Park?
I had thought they were testing it on them.
That's my understanding too, because they were testing the I'm going to call it the pathogen, even though it's slightly different. They were testing the pathogen on them because we see the video, right, of the rat getting smashed.
Yeah, the rat gets crushed, and then they inject it into the rat's corpse, and it pops back up. Later on, it explodes, but whatever.
Right. All right. Here's the thing that kind of bugs me. Rook is giving them all the explanation of this. They're watching the video. They see the part where they inject the rat, and it comes back to life. They leave the room, and then it shows us that same rat cage with some mutated, almost trilobite-looking thing inside it. Mm-hmm. It's the same little test cage right next to the video they were watching. Like, how did they miss that?
It was a bit like, it's right there, dude. Like,
right. And what was that? Infiltrator and Fireteam Elite, where they had like the Rat X.
Yes, that's my understanding. That's the poppers you fight in Fireteam, right? Those little dudes,
right?
The pathogen poppers. The spicy.
Those little white sparrow things.
Cheddar pathogen poppers.
I put together that must be what those things are because of, you know, the emphasis on the rats in Infiltrator, but I'm not sure that it actually is. It might be something else, a local species or something, right? But
probably.
They didn't look like this, that's for sure. One thing I really liked in this movie was seeing the colony
at the start.
Jackson Star, the mining colony.
Yeah.
It there was a lot of stuff in there that looked like Hadley's Hope, right? The neon bar sign sticks out, but just like the construction and everything. And, you know, it was nice to see like a functioning colony for once, even though it wasn't functioning very well.
Yeah.
It made me think what it would be like to see a movie, like, you know, to see the movie version of, you know, River of Pain, right? where we're seeing
Totally.
xenomorphs taking over a colony on a planet, like a fully, like just a functioning colony with like thousands of people living in it. And then, one of these things gets loose, because we always see the aftermath. But I really liked the way it looked, and you got the vehicles running everywhere, and the cafeteria.
Seeing those vehicles brought me right back to a bit of mystery you get in the original Alien when Brett walks through the garage where all those like little vehicles are, and you don't get any context about them. They're just there.
This is when Brett's on his way to get killed, right?
Yeah, in the chain room.
Chain room. That's right.
Yeah,
the vehicles were great.
I liked seeing those details. I like seeing that kind of world building. Just, I don't know. It just adds a lot of life to this series that has mostly been isolated locations and isolated crews and empty facilities and stuff. It was just, I just dug it, and I dug the way it was portrayed, and it made me think about what else they could do with this series, because I think one of my kind of gripes about this, which isn't a gripe I thought I was going to have going in, is it was kind of just Alien again, right? There's a clip out there of Kenny, you and I saying like, it looks like they're doing Alien again. We'll keep watching that because that's what we want. I'm not so sure that's what I want anymore. Maybe that's the overall, the issue I have with this movie was I'm just looking for something different at this point, and not Prometheus different, because that was doing a lot of work trying to make you think of Alien also, just in the wrong ways, but it was still doing it right.
Yeah,
I think that's fine, because it is kind of like a new Alien, but then, and it is pretty much beat for beat Alien, but in a way that's kind of, I'm all right with that, because now we can branch out and we can start a new Alien series in this time zone. So it kind of almost works like a bit like a reboot without being a reboot. So, I mean, I think it's fine it is a bit too Alien times, but I'm okay with that if we're going to get some more Alien films that go off and do their own thing after this.
Yeah.
I think
I'm really tired of hearing the phrase like, "Oh, it's a love letter to Alien." Like, I don't.
Right.
Just give me something new. I don't want to hear that phrase anymore.
Yeah.
But we did get I went to the Cinemark XD and I got a little sneak peek at Alien Earth.
Oh shit!
So we'll see. No, it was just a really quick xenomorph.
I got the same thing where it's the Earth and then it fades into a xenomorph head. Yeah. So I am excited about that.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of the reason the movie worked so well for me, about how you guys were basically saying it's just Alien again. I mean, as Neil said, I've gone on record that that's what I want. And so that is part of the reason why I liked it. But another thing that I liked about it was that, to me, the movie felt like a bridge between the first two movies, because the focus of it is still on them fighting the big alien guy running around, but there are also times where they're fighting groups of them simultaneously with big military weapons. And so it kind of switches between what the first one does and what the second one does, and it just kind of blended them in a way that made me go, oh yeah, this is like the missing link kind of between those two movies, where you have this one, or you have the first one, which is one extreme, the second one, which is the other extreme, and this one kind of does both of them at once. And so it was like, okay, now I'm kind of getting what they're doing here.
And there's little things like when Andy pulls out the pulse rifles and Tyler's sort of running them down, and he says that they're like the ones the Colonial Marines use.
Right.
So there's that small reference, but nothing, too in depth. It's just sort of like, yep, same universe, we're heading there, we're going there.
Yeah. The one, I kind of wish we had gotten to see more of Romulus and Remus, right? What's the station's like full name?
Renaissance Station, I think on the readout it was called Ren Station.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which it's wild to me that they made
Stimpy Station. Okay,
that's right. It's wild to me that they made such a big deal about the station being divided into two halves, because unless I missed something, that didn't end up actually coming into play at all.
Yeah.
It didn't
Not
matter
really.
at all.
You got to travel from one side to the other when the ship crashes into it, right? Like they land on Remus, I think, and the ship crashes into Romulus, and they got to go over there. It was, it was a little hard to follow. Tom, you probably didn't have any problem understanding these actors, but I kind of did sometimes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it with the subtitles.
Yeah, it kind of needs them for, but also I think that really speaks to how natural the cast was being. There was no what I call shitty marine dialogue in this.
Yeah, for sure.
They just felt like they were actual people talking, the way they would actually talk. But
yeah. I mean, what's his name was a bit mouthy. I mean, he was kind of, I'm not going to lie, when he got acid to death,
yeah,
I wasn't being like, oh, good, he's going to shut up now. Then that's good.
Oh yeah, during the exposition moments, especially before they left Jackson Star, there were moments where he said a line, and I was like, I have no fucking idea what that dude just said. I did not understand him.
Oh, fucker.
Also, speaking of which, since I mentioned Jackson Star, that reminded me, there were two little moments during that opening scene on the colony that I wanted to mention that I really liked. I legitimately got a laugh out of during the opening crawl when the data information was coming up on it, and it was hours of sun yearly. 0. That really made me laugh. And I also really liked about how just because the entire opening section of the movie is just about how just insanely wantonly cruel the company is about everything they do and how they do it. And I thought the best example of that was how Rain was like, well, I've done my 12,000 hours. I get to be on the ship. Yes. I'm applying for it or whatever. And it cuts over to the lady and she brings up Rain's profile and it says she's done 12,032 hours. The target is 12,000. And she just kind of looks at it and goes,
She does a whole Dennis Nedry on her.
Yeah, she's
you didn't say the word.
She looks at it and internally she's thinking, oh shit, she did meet that quota. And so there's a couple of taps and then suddenly the number just changes to 24,000 and she's like, oh no, you actually haven't met the quota because the quota got raised.
Something.
And I was to me, that exemplified more than anything else, just the casual cruelty of the company and just that's the perfect example of how much they just don't fucking care about anyone at all. I loved that little touch so much.
I think they call that a dick move.
Sure.
Well, yes.
It's especially fucked up because when she first goes up to the window and she's trying to apply to leave or whatever, the officer is like, where are your parents? And she's like, they died. And then she hits her with, sorry, quotas have been raised because of lack of workers. And yeah, her parents were workers, and it's because your workers keep fucking dying.
Yeah, they're dead because you killed them, dog.
Yeah, but it was a good motivation for her to go along with this plan to escape. To hit up this derelict space station.
Yeah, I believed that.
Yeah, she's just I'm never going to get out of here. None of us are unless we escape. Right.
And and she had mentioned she was going to Yavaga.
Yes.
And I feel like that was motivation for them to keep her there, maybe because of some, corporate grudge they have against another world being run by a non-Weyland-Yutani corporation. But
I may be completely
ran by
wrong
Walmart, am I right?
I may be completely wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that Yavaga is, I think it might be Greek or something like that, and I think it means heaven or something.
Okay.
I might be completely wrong. I might have completely.
I'd believe it.
I might have completely just made that up, but
it's a real world designation for a planet.
Sanskrit.
Yeah, there you go. It means sky or heaven in Guarani. I don't know what that is, but yeah, that's what it means.
Oh, not Sanskrit. Sorry. Being autocorrected it to yoga. Right, maybe,
and I think I dropped it in the Discord, but when Rain leaves Tyler's like trailer or camp, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's watching the miners walk by, and he has that canary in the box.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So cool, adding to that whole like retro futurism look.
Yes.
Yeah, and just like wanting to know more about that device, I looked it up, and it's really interesting, the history behind it. But you know, obviously in the future there would be like things to detect gases like carbon monoxide, but the fact that they got one of those boxes and put a bird in it and put it in the film was really, really cool.
Yeah, man.
I agree.
Speaking of birds, we got a drinking bird too. We got a dippy bird.
Dippy bird, baby.
Yeah, I think just the
Dippy
one
bird and cornbread.
and in the same scene. Yeah, man.
Right.
That's peak Alien right there. You know what you're getting right away with this movie. Yeah,
so we've talked about the colony.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the station.
It feels like
Some of
we're
the
all kind
action
of trying to
sequences.
avoid a certain something. Just like we're all kind of teetering around it, but no one wants to take the leap.
Let's hold off on that one more time because I think we've talked about every character except for Tyler, Archie Renault. He was cool. I liked him. You know.
Yeah, I don't really have any strong opinion about him either way. He was fine. He was just like another one of those, like he's just another guy that's in the movie.
I think he was a straight shooter. And
yeah, I mean, I thought he did a fine job. The character just wasn't really a standout to me.
Right.
No.
You know, he was a pretty good, like, sort of de facto leader until he got right. And,
Right.
and
I did like his death, though. I
Yes.
did like his death.
I appreciated that he was like straight with Rain about like why they need Andy. And he's like, look, Andy speaks mother. We need him to do this. And I'm sorry, you can't bring him with us there, you know?
Yeah.
And I like that they've hinted at some kind of history between Rain and Tyler that, you know, but it doesn't like that, you know, the movie doesn't spend a lot of time on that. It just sort of helps establish that there's like a connection between them. And, you know, I thought overall he was pretty smart with the decisions they were all making, but still very clearly in over his head without even knowing it. Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
I thought his performance was good. Yeah, that's all. Just wanted to make sure we shouted him out.
I don't buy the line of you know, oh, how do you know all this stuff? And it's like, oh, you know, games and magazines. Like, I mean, I play a load of games. I'm currently playing Doom, but if the planet was to be overrun with Hellspawn, I don't think I could tell you how to take them down.
Yeah, but like, but he knows the weapons because he's playing like the future's version of Call of Duty, right? When they're putting like real guns in it.
Call of Duty, what would be 152 at that point?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And they all had a little bit of a
Arcturian poontang.
poontang.
That's just the DLC, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. The ESRB's been eliminated at this point. They can put whatever they want. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I like how each character had a little bit of a specialization. Like we had a pilot, we had somebody who knew about guns. Bjorn was more of like he was like the industrial worker. He even mentioned the phrase Tessitech. I don't know how many of you heard that, but I don't know if it came before, but that's something right out of the Blueprints book.
Oh, cool.
The ore refinery that's being towed by the Nostromo.
Yes.
In the Blueprints, they say the company that built it or manufactured it is Cygnus, and the mechanism itself is called the Tessitech 2100. And so there's a scene where Bjorn says, "Oh, we were loading the last Tessitech." I thought that was a really cool detail.
Nice.
Really lore heavy.
That kind of works as a nice segue as well. You're saying everyone was there for a particular reason. They all had their part to play. And I think Kay was only there to give us the final act.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was also the only one not sort of partnered off, right? Because Navarro was with Bjorn and Tyler and Rain had this connection, and Rain and Andy have this connection, and Kay really is just there.
Yeah. She's just there to facilitate the climax, which, by the way, I'd like to say very briefly, going back to our Evil Dead discussion earlier, this movie, when I was walking out of the theater, I thought that movie reminds me a lot of Evil Dead Rise.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, man. We should just rip the Band-Aid off, guys.
Oh God.
Who wants to
Here we go.
Who wants to tell the listeners that they did Alien Resurrection again?
I'll take it over. There is a scene in this movie where it is the closest I've ever been to legitimately being scared by an alien movie when Kay gives birth to a huge egg, and I went, what the fuck? Jesus. And then the egg cracks open and there is a human fetus in it, and I went, what the fuck?
That shot was,
which was right out of the pages of Geiger's sketchbook, by the way.
Yes, it was.
I'll say humanoid, because it definitely had a pale complexion, bluish pale complexion,
and
like
then,
some other
and
guys
then it grows up and turns into what my brain went, oh, it's half xenomorph, half engineer.
Yes.
But then I was like, I don't know that it actually is part engineer, because like that's not where they got the pathogen from in this movie. So it has to just be a half human, half xenomorph hybrid, but it does not look like the newborn from Resurrection. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, it's but it is engineer-y. And
it looks like an engineer, but I think it's supposed to just be part human.
But it would be a strange design choice to make it look like an engineer if it's not an engineer within the same kind of, sandbox. Like if it was a different film franchise, you go, oh, that looks like the engineers from the Alien movies. Right. But to have it look like an engineer in an Alien movie,
and like I said,
be intentional just felt really.
And like I said, that was my first gut reaction. But then I remembered that in this movie, like in Prometheus, my understanding was that they created the xenomorphs by injecting people with the pathogen, whereas in this movie they got the pathogen by removing it from xenomorphs that already existed. So sure. I'm not saying that, like, I'm not trying to complain or trying to posit that the engineers don't exist in this movie or whatever, but it's like the engineer part of the xenomorph pathogen thing doesn't have anything to do with how they got it in this movie. So my first instinctive gut reaction of going, oh, that looks like an engineer, I corrected myself a few seconds later when I was like, yeah, but they aren't involved in this movie. So how would, logically speaking, how would it be part engineer when that didn't have anything to do with how they got it in this one?
Yeah,
so that was the point I was trying to
make. Or are they saying that we have engineered DNA within ourselves or something like that?
That is, I
according
believe,
to Prometheus, we do.
That the xenomorphs do. Right?
Yeah. So my reading on this was, we see the engineer, drink the goo and break down at the beginning of Prometheus to seed life on a planet. They shared, DNA or genes with humans, whatever, right? Like it paints a pretty clear picture that we're, derived from the engineers.
We are genetic ancestors of engineers. Yes.
Right. But also like genetically part engineer, part Earth.
Right. So I was thinking if the compound in this, that they've been synthesizing from the pathogen is meant to specifically accelerate evolution, the implication there is that it's accelerating human evolution back into engineers, basically. Which that's just how I reasoned with it in the moment, because I was also like, wait, why are the engineers showing up again? I mean, the link is obviously something with the pathogen, which we still don't have a full canon explanation for what it does and how it works.
Yeah.
But that was my reading on it. Like, there was
what did you all think of the design of it?
Heavy influence on.
Look, all I'm saying is, if there's a celebrity death match, I'm going with the newborn.
For the record, I believe this thing is referred to as the offspring, in order to differentiate it from a newborn.
So in a fight, yes. So if we have a newborn and the offspring, you guys, we got to keep them separated. Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, we went home and we rewatched the scenes with the newborn in it, and just so much like head crushing, gory, oozy, dripping, practical. It just, I don't know. I just prefer the newborn over the offspring. Like, it was a great end to the movie. I just it's just too similar to the newborn. I prefer that over the offspring.
Yeah. I thought they really took a swing with this. I don't know how much I like it in the end, but I'm glad they did it. I think it would have been better received by me, at least, if it didn't have the shadow of the newborn hanging over it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Like it felt like this is the thing that felt, even though it's different, this is the thing that felt the most like intentional reference to a movie that came before it. Like fan service is the wrong word, because I don't think anyone was asking for that. Right. Maybe a couple of freaks out there, but it didn't feel, it felt like we've brought up the compound. We've got these two other movies with this other alien race, that came out in fairly recent years. Mm-hmm. We're never going to get to tie up that as a trilogy and that storylines. We have to address it somehow. Let's just get some of that stuff in this movie and figure out a gross way to do it too. Mm-hmm. I don't hate it. This did, Kenny, remind me of the end of Evil Dead Rise with I forget what they call the monster in that.
I think it's the Marauder. I think.
Yeah, where it's just like an amalgamation of just like all kinds of,
where it's a big, gross, weird monster that came out of nowhere that I was not expecting to see in this specific movie. That's why it reminded me of Evil Dead Rise.
That's got parts from a bunch of different people and things in it, and so. I don't know if I like it or not. This isn't what made me waver on the quality of the movie overall or what I thought of it overall. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure that this helped the case either, right?
And then there was like a giant Venus flytrap looking egg filled with acid look, I get when like a new director or writer or whatever is wanting to add a new part of the life cycle, like a very subtle. So the chrysalis was like a perfect example, but I felt this part just, the end of the movie has, a different kind of creature that the newborn is perfect for resurrection, I think. And this had its own flair for sure, but I don't think it was original.
When I was putting the pieces together, when she's carrying the compound and they've already like set up the idea that she might inject herself with it, and then she does, and she's pregnant, part of me was thinking like, Deacon? We're going to get like a Deacon? Is it going to be like a very direct reference or Trilobite, right? Like,
or the Alien 3 comic series where the xenomorph like bursts out from under her skin.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought
that was going to happen.
Oh yeah, human xenomorph hybrid like in the Gibson.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, I was it just rips off all the skin and it's just suddenly a xenomorph. I remember that now. Thanks for reminding me.
No problem. Glad to help.
It was none of that. It was this other thing, and I don't know. Again, props to them for taking the chance. Tom, you're kind of quiet about this.
I was just thinking while I was watching the last act, I, like Kenny, had a moment where I did think of you whilst watching it, Neil.
Okay.
And the fact that there was a countdown.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know you love your countdowns.
I do. And apparently when they had the 30-minute countdown, 30 minutes left in the movie.
Nice.
Apparently they timed it out.
Awesome.
Always appreciate that detail.
Yeah, I heard in an interview that they said when they drew inspiration from Alien Isolation that they added those emergency call boxes at moments when shit was about to go down.
Oh, that's cool. That's a fun detail.
If you rewatch the movie and you see those emergency boxes, that's when, it's going to get gnarly.
Oh,
nice. Cool. Kind of like in Jaws, when you only hear the theme when Jaws is around.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I was only quiet because I was just, I was interested in hearing what you had to say because, it's for me, it was the worst part of the film, if I'm honest.
That's totally fair. I mean, it was jarring, right? I happened.
But you make a good point. If Resurrection hadn't happened before it, I probably would have liked it. But when I saw it, I was just like, "Oh, we're doing this again! Oh my god!" Like,
I wish they'd just called it the Newborn again.
Newborn Mark II.
Props to Robert Bobrovsky, if I got that name right. He's the newborn performer. And I think he did a good job. I mean, that was clearly there was, I think, some minor CGI on that, but it looked really practical. So I feel like they put him in the suit, you know.
It's beady eyeballs and its smile.
Yeah, this is his only credit so far.
Oh.
Yeah.
Until the sequel.
Sure. All Offspring.
Oh dear.
I hate to break it to you guys, but that was my favorite part of the whole movie.
Hell yeah, Kenny.
My brother was the same. I saw it with my brother. My brother said the same. He was just like, that was his favorite part of the movie.
Like how I said earlier that Kay gives birth to an egg, and I was like, what the fuck? And then the egg cracks open and there's a human baby in it, and I was like, what the fuck? Later on, like a minute or two later, when the offspring actually shows up, I didn't even go, what the fuck? I leaned back in my chair and unconsciously covered my mouth with my hand because my brain is like, that is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in my entire life. Absolutely inject this shit into my veins, baby. I've gone on record before that I loved the shit out of the later Resident Evil games, even though they were bad, because even though 5 and 6 are not very good games, but I loved playing them because my shit is design the most fucked up monster you can possibly think of, and I will be like, make it even more fucked up and I'll like it even more. And that's what I felt when I saw the offspring. I saw that thing and I was like, absolutely not. I love it. I wish this guy was in every frame of the movie now.
I definitely will be ordering the I mean, I'm sure NECA are going to announce a figure of it, and I will be getting it because I have to have all the
probably not going to be a hard one to get a hold of.
Yeah, and like how his pharyngeal jaw looks like a fucking leech. God, that was so cool.
Oh, yeah, no, that was. That
I
was
like that detail.
Yeah, I do.
And when he started eating K or whatever it was that he did,
I thought he was suckling on a getting a bit of milk.
Just whatever it was he was doing. He was crouched down over her, and then he stands up, and then while you're looking at him, his xenomorph's tail physically starts to grow out of his body. The growth is happening fast enough that you can see it on screen. That shit was so fucking cool to me, dog.
And it was very much it was very much Neomorph inspired. And I've been saying, I want more Neomorphs. Give me more.
Dude, I love
that shit.
Yeah. And Neomorphs are great.
And the other thing that I'd like to point out is that now that we're having this conversation, sitting here talking about it, structurally, thematically, that is very similar to the Newborn, but I gotta admit, that did not occur to me at all while actually watching the movie. I totally forgot the Newborn even existed, because to me, it was different enough that it did not evoke those memories to me.
That's fair.
Okay. Well, I'm happy for you.
But going on, Kenny, you're saying that your favorite part of the movie. I think there was one scene in the movie that I'm surprised we haven't spoken about, and that was the Zero-G acid scene.
The Zero-G acid scene was so dope.
Yeah, from what I've been able to gather online, that generally seems to be because there's been a lot of varying opinions about this movie, but that seems to be the consensus. This scene rules, no matter what people think about it. Otherwise, everyone seems to be like, that scene is great.
But that whole scene is just scattered with amazing shots. There was one shot, I think, and is just after Andy's collapsed on the floor and he's freaking out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's a xenomorph crouched over him. And then it does a wide shot as the xenomorph kind of stands up, and then facehuggers come around the corners of the corridor. Mm-hmm. And instantly I was like, I need that as wallpaper. Oh my God, I need that as wallpaper. And that whole scene of the hive going into the Zero-G and then into the elevator scene, that was awesome.
It was very cool. When I first was watching it, I couldn't understand why Rain and Andy weren't floating, and then I realized it's because he was holding onto the ground and holding her by the shoulder down, and then it made sense to me. But I didn't catch that right away, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?" You know.
Also, how about the return of that blue mist in the hive, baby?
Yeah.
So cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still don't know what it does.
No.
Yeah, still don't, but it's cool. Like Andy seemed to note that it was like significant because he sees it and puts his hand down it and he's like, huh, but then it never really comes up again. So
Yeah, it's kind of like the way he interacts with it is kind of like, oh shit, kind of. But yeah, like you say, you don't get anything more than that. But yeah, I loved that scene. That scene was awesome.
Going back to your question at the beginning of the podcast about what we thought about Fede Alvarez directing the movie, I am now talking about the scene, remembering literally the first sentence out of my mouth was, Fede's hive is going to be gnarly looking.
Yeah.
And it was. I love that even though it was like not a lot, that scene with all those bodies hanging and the resin, I thought he did an awesome job.
Oh yeah, the way the camera kind of
whole hive to get
bodies and stuff. It was
oh
awesome.
man.
Do you know, it kind of reminded me of Ghostbusters 2 when they're in the subway and all the zombie heads.
Right.
Everything reminds me of Ghostbusters something, Tom. You got a problem.
Yeah. I got to sneak it in there somewhere.
Surprised you went long without bringing it up, honestly. That's like me bringing up Earth Savers from Alien Covenant Origins.
Yeah. We all have our nuances.
Yeah.
somehow you've managed to bring it up twice in this episode alone. Good work.
Thank you.
And then very similar to the newborn, we get a second sequence with the offspring and a similar fate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this scene really worked for me. A lot of up and down ladders a little bit though, right?
Yeah, there are.
You know, there was clearly like with the 4 switches to release the cargo hold, you know.
Yeah. And I think at this point I had accepted the offspring and I was back on the edge of my seat the whole rest of this movie.
It was really tense.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
It was really tense and it was really doing that alien thing of like, you know, this was a much more simple process than, you know, setting self-destruct on the Nostromo, but it was complicated by like this thing being around in such close proximity. And I really liked it. And I liked, just to skip ahead, when she does, you know, kick the acid over and everything starts getting ejected, when the thing is like, you know, still hanging on inside the cargo bay and it's getting torn up by all of that like mining ore or whatever they were hauling, just like, you know, getting sucked out into space and cutting its face and stuff up. That was gnarly. And I really liked that, so much so that I didn't consider, why isn't her suit getting torn to pieces by this stuff also, you know? But again, that's a minor gripe.
I did like how they managed to figure out a way to kill the creature by not blowing it out of an airlock again.
Sure. Yeah, because
they've done that a couple of times and they came up with a different way to dispatch it. I did like that. They threatened to do the same thing they did in Resurrection by like how Neil just mentioned, like having the creature like getting pulled out from but they didn't do that either. They came up with a new, different way that a movie hasn't used before. I appreciated that.
Yeah, man. When she's dangling out of that thing just freely in space, right? Mm-hmm. Getting attacked by this dude's weird tongue, and she hits that lever and like the whole container like drops around her and crashes into this like super dense asteroid belt.
Which, by the way, the shots of the like, you know, the space outside and like the planet and the asteroid belt and all that, that shit looked so fucking good. The cinematography in this movie in general was great.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
The sound quality too. I mean, when it went silent, she's out in space.
Funny, I was going to bring it up earlier when you brought up the soundtrack. Actually, the sound for me was actually a bit of an issue because I'm a soundtrack guy. I love a soundtrack. I listen to soundtracks when I draw and all of that. But this one kind of, I felt sometimes the soundtrack was taking away from the suspense of the movie. I think sometimes...
Was it like leading you, like tipping off what was going to happen a little bit? Or
yeah, a little bit. And then also sometimes I just found it was just too loud as well. Like it just needed to be in the background. It didn't need to be so foreboding and in the foreground, I guess. It's a great soundtrack. I've listened to the soundtrack since, and I'm not faulting the soundtrack. Sometimes I think that there was too much music. I think sometimes Alien works better. Like, I mean, think of the first Alien. There's hardly any soundtrack to that film at all.
Right.
That is a difference I noticed when I watched Alien last night. It was a much quieter movie.
It's quiet. It's a quiet film, and sometimes the quietness.
Yeah, there's a lot more sound effects.
It adds so much to the suspense. Whereas if you've got music building up that's kind of telling you something's about to come, when it does come, it's just like, well, yeah, it was, you know, the music told me that was coming. That's fine. Like,
Right.
Yeah, and I would have almost preferred, like, you know, in some horror movies, a soundtrack is there specifically to almost irritate you and make you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
To match what you're watching.
I'd agree to that. Yeah.
Like in Jaws, when the music only shows up when Jaws is around.
Exactly, Neil.
I mean,
My reference was actually going to be Serbian film, but Jaws.
All right.
Sure.
Haven't watched that yet. Don't think I ever will.
Yeah, I do not recommend it. I have a lot of strong opinions about that movie.
To speak on what I'm referring to, that movie is just filled with like high pitched noises to irritate you and make you like shrivel and just.
It's intended to make you extremely uncomfortable in a wide variety of ways, and the soundtrack is just one of them.
Is that like that episode of South Park where there's that note that makes you shit yourself?
The brown note,
like
It's part of the experience of watching that film, from what I understand. Yeah, I think I'm with you, Tom. I think I didn't realize it at the time, but watching Alien last night, I appreciated the silence of that movie. But also a scene that keeps popping into my head, because it's always kind of in there, is how effective the sound design was in Alien Covenant in the Bloodburster scene. Where it's just like that sort of, you know, intense rumble going on underneath everything. And I can't pinpoint, but there was something in this movie, in Romulus, that reminded me of that. And you guys got any idea what scene that might have been?
Well, there were some scenes where they played that audio of like what I think in the past I've heard is like a chorus warming up.
Okay.
Where sort of all those voices like slowly like reaching this crescendo, and they're sort of like going up and up and up and up, and it's sort of like
Alien 3-esque, because Alien 3's got a lot of choir in it, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but it wasn't something that while watching the movie sort of distracted me. Like, I thought everything sounded great, but I think afterwards I thought like, yeah, this probably could have used a little bit less of that as well.
Less is more in some situations, definitely.
Yeah, but I did like when we would cut to space, everything would be pretty darn silent, right?
Yeah.
You weren't getting a lot of clicks.
I love
and
that
claps.
in any movie when they do that, and it really does. Yeah, it's a nice little touch.
I also just like the main connection to the original movie is that they've gone through the Nostromo wreckage and they've found the big chap. That was honestly like that was enough of a connection to Alien for me.
Yeah, I agree.
But they didn't lean too heavily into like direct references to that movie. I watched some video about some guy trying to point out all the Easter eggs to the franchise, and like it got a little silly where it was like Bjorn's wearing a red bandana around his head, which is like Vasquez in Aliens, of course. And it was
like, or he, I mean, I know that's going to be something that's immediately recognizable, but it's like, on the other hand, he could just be wearing a bandana. It's fine.
Right. It was a little hyper specific, some of those things.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I wear a bandana and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm Vasquez, bitch.
Sure. I mean, we've all done it.
I will say though, with Neil, how you mentioned about how, like, you know, the opening is like exactly the amount of connective tissue you wanted with the original movie. Another thought I had on the way home from the film, because I saw it Friday evening. My showing was at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So it was like 8:15, something like that on my way home. I was thinking about how it made me laugh about how before the movie came out, Fede is like, this is an unconnected movie. It's its own solo thing. And then I walked out of the movie thinking, this is the most connected any Alien movie has been in the entire series.
This movie couldn't be more connected to another movie. This wouldn't have happened at all without that. I mean,
I know sometimes I read an Alien novel and I'm like, oh, they mentioned a ship or a planet from another book.
Right.
And then this one is like referencing everything from every other movie.
Like, it doesn't just have references to all the other ones. Like, the actual plot is connected via actual, like, narrative structure to, like, 4 other movies in the series.
Yeah.
I did like that scene after the asteroid is brought to Ren Station and those scientists and like soldiers are all suited up. It reminded me a lot of the end of Alien 3 with Commandos.
Yep.
With the ape
Loved
suit.
that. Absolutely. Yeah, loved it. I love those characters. Those are some of my favorites in the entire franchise.
I love an ape suit.
Yeah, we've talked on here several times about how much we love the ape guys.
I would wear an ape suit every day if I had one. But it's kind of hot here in Florida. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it right now. Yeah.
And like I said earlier, you know, when I grew up with 1 through 6 of what was later called Outbreak, obviously, but the beginning of this movie reminded me of that, right? The probe going out, and then of course it doesn't come back with a xenomorph riding it like a horse, but you know, it had that connective tissue for me, and I just immediately I was like, this is going to be an awesome
proving
watch. I can't wait to see
that Fede Alvarez is a coward for not having the xenomorph riding the probe like a horse.
Holding on one hand, the other with the lasso,
swinging its tail around like a lasso.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Question for you guys: did that feel like 2 hours to you?
No,
it
not at all. Right?
Didn't. No.
I was like, wait, there's only 30 minutes left in the movie.
It flew by.
I thought it was shorter than that. If I'm honest,
It's definitely somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, with credits, I think it maxes out at 2 hours. No post-credit scenes, by the way. I looked that up.
There is not. No, I looked it up. Yeah, I think with the credits, the movie is like 2:06 or something like that. So it's like right around like just shy of 2 hours long.
Same with the Alien director's cut. It's like 1:56, I think.
Yeah.
I watched that. You know, I watched the director's cut last night. That doesn't feel like 2 hours either. Like that's the one thing that this movie did not. It kept moving. It didn't drag its feet. I never felt bored during it, and it did not feel like it was, you know, hitting the 2 hour mark. It moved, and it was paced really well, in my opinion, and it was, you know, an easy watch. I mean, it was a lot of gross, disgusting stuff, but you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't a slog like a certain other movie in the franchise that starts with a P is.
Yeah, I believe, Mike, you were saying earlier about how you were basically on the edge of your seat the whole time. Yeah. You know that meme of like, it's the picture of like the dude who's sitting back in the chair and then you see him lean forward like with the big arrow. I did that like a dozen times over the course of the movie. I would sit back like when people were talking, then the moment something happened, I would be like, ooh, baby. And I was locked the fuck in.
Amazing.
So I saw this with engineer Carissa, who was on our Aliens movie episode. Mm-hmm. And our theater had like the motorized reclining seats and everything, right?
Nice.
And so like I sit down and I like immediately like full recline it, and boy, those things just keep going back. I was totally as comfortable as hell, but
to the point you're not even watching it anymore. You're looking at the ceiling.
But before the movie started, I reset it to normal position, and I told her, I was like, I have a feeling I'm going to need to get to the edge of this seat as easy as possible. Just my dumbass making a joke.
I went with my mum, and I mentioned last time I spoke to you guys that, you know, my mum is responsible for me being an Alien fan, so obviously I naturally had to go with her. But I'm pretty sure that her left arm is just absolutely covered in bruises. Where I was just like, when you saw Rook's body on the floor before it was established it was Ian Holm, and I was like, oh, you know who that is? That you poking.
I know that shirt.
Yeah, I know that. You know who he is. Oh my god.
Question:
you paid for the whole seat, but you only needed the edge.
That's right. Yeah. Was he teased in any of the trailers you guys watched?
No.
So there was one promotional short, with Ian Holm's voice.
Oh, okay.
And it was the voice actor, and it was the part where they were saying like, we've been searching for this ever since the destruction of the Nostromo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember commenting on something online saying like, oh, like, are they bringing Ash in? Maybe that was like a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. And that was the only piece of media I had seen or heard that referenced.
Slept on that one.
What else was out there in like promotional stuff? I'm interested in like,
there was so much.
Were there any like misdirects or just, you know, I know
my wife mentioned a number of times. She's like, the trailer gave so much away.
Yeah.
Like the trailer just gave so much away.
That's the thing, because Fede said, didn't he, that everything that you see in the trailer is like, you know, it's all in the first half of the movie.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's great. Like, that's great news. But then coming out of it, you're like, actually, that's in the first 2/3 of the movie. The only the only things I didn't know coming out were Ash and the Offspring. They were the two things that, you know, obviously I didn't know the plot, but they were the two things that were generally like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we all kind of knew the plot, which was people on a space station have to escape xenomorphs.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And people have problems with that. Like, from what I've seen on some message boards and whatnot, people are like, oh, it's the same story every time. It's just like, well, what else? I mean, I'd love to see someone else do something else, but I don't know what you would do. Like,
yeah, it's like that percent. There's always going to be a percent dissatisfied. I mean, even earlier, you know, Neil, and I agreed with you 100%. Like, I'm tired of seeing Alien again. I want to see something new.
Right.
But then, like, the Offspring is this new thing, and we were like, boo, Offspring. No, don't give me something new.
So I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I don't think it's so much I don't think we need any more lore building, right? We got enough of that weirdness in Prometheus and Covenant, and all it's really done is complicate things in a way that they don't need to be complicated, in my opinion, right?
For sure.
And left me trying to like reason with how these things can fit what I find scary about the xenomorph and the Alien franchise in general, which is this idea that, you know, mankind has gone out and started colonizing space, and we're running into this thing that we are just not equipped to deal with at all. You know, that's what's terrifying to me. The thought that those things could be literally out there right now. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what kept me awake as a child. So, but I think there's gotta be, and I think we've seen it in comics and I think we've seen it in novels. There's gotta be a way to make a film that doesn't feel like a retread. Right. Like, I don't know, maybe we should, you know, a la Outbreak, right? Maybe stick some xenomorphs in a highly populated area that's not, you know, well, I guess AVP Requiem doesn't really count because it wasn't that populated, and just see what that's about and how that kind of story unfolds. You know,
I love that. I mean, prior to Romulus being solicited, I was 100% in with saying, like, if they make another Alien movie, it needs to be Phalanx.
Oh, that'd be, that would be a fascinating
that'd be cool. Hell
film, you know. Just, something like that. You know, I think, you know, again, I think the books and comics are doing versions of that and have been for years, but we haven't gotten that as a movie yet. Yeah. And, you know, maybe when they're trying to like kickstart the franchise again after a couple of poorly received prequels, right? This was probably the right choice to sort of back to basics, you know, reestablish things, update it for a new generation, younger cast, right? Make this kind of standalone, you know, to get people back involved and get them curious about the other movies. And now we can take more chances moving forward, which is, I hope, what they do. But, you know, we'll just have to see, right? We'll have to see how big this is.
Well, I mean, they kind of revealed, I read something about the amount of money it's making worldwide already.
Oh, yeah.
And it's already, like, it's smashing targets.
Well, that's fantastic.
So it's made enough money that we're guaranteed to get a follow-up, I gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, it's pretty much, you know, I know it's early days, but I think we can say it's safe to say that we're probably going to see a sequel.
Great. I hope they give it to J.J. Abrams.
Oh.
speaking of theoretical follow-ups, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but Fede straight up says, I think me and Dan Trachtenberg should co-direct an Alien vs. Predator movie.
Hell yeah.
Watch the fuck out of that. Are you kidding me?
I would watch the fuck out of that, dude. That would be so good. I would love it.
There you go. Do it.
God damn
Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, for a follow-up, they did, you know, this movie did what every Alien story has done, and they left a couple of people floating in space.
Right.
I don't know how many people are going to be left floating in space, but I think it was Predator Hunters, the comic series, where they were just finally like, fuck it, let's just put all of these past characters into one comic book.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. Yeah,
I definitely want to see more Andy. I definitely want to see more Andy.
Yeah, for
God
sure.
damn it.
Definitely.
You know, we got all these people floating around in space who are ready to take the fight straight to Weyland-Yutani. Let's make that the sequel.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
For sure.
What's his name at the end of the what was the book that the Hadley's Hope? What was it called? Sea of Sorrows? No, it wasn't.
No, it was River of Pain.
River of Pain. That's it. Yeah. What's his name? He went off to take it to the man, didn't he?
He sure did.
The people at the second Marvel arc, which I want to call Sanctuary, but it's not that, but it's something close. Revival. Yeah, they were heading out to do that. I think. Probably the Steel Team. You know.
There's a lot of angry people out there.
And then we got our next upcoming installment, which I am to understand that Alex White had a part in also writing.
Oh, nice.
Which is Rogue Incursion. So.
Oh my God! Yeah, I was listening to an Alex White interview this morning about Rogue Incursion. Yeah, cool. That looks, and bringing back Zula Hendricks and Davis One. I'm always up for Zula Hendricks and Davis One.
And then, of course, you know, Thor and the Avengers are going to have to take the fight to Weyland-Yutani pretty soon here.
Right.
That's next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's next week, isn't it? Is it next week?
Kenny, we probably got to talk about how we're going to cover that.
I think they postponed those, actually.
Ooh, I hope so. We got to finish What If.
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
We're already... Go on.
We're already like 4 or 5 things behind where we wanted to be right now. We really do not need another comic book to fucking come out.
I've asked my local comic store to put back like several variant covers for me, and I'll either pick out my favorite or I'll just take them all.
Yeah,
just take them all.
Yeah, take them all.
Yeah. We got anything else we want to talk about on
I was just about to ask, anyone else have anything else they want to say before we wrap it up?
Floor is open.
I had so much fun chatting about Aliens with Aliens fans.
Yeah, agree.
Thank you for inviting me. This was so awesome to do after seeing such a great movie. I'm waiting for it to come out for pre-order or download on digital. Like I need this on my TV at home, like immediately.
For sure.
I'm looking forward to watching this again in good quality. I'll definitely be grabbing
not being reminded of your you need a bet. Go bet.
Yeah, right. We're not going to talk about it publicly. I had one thought, which was, this was originally planned to go straight to Hulu like Prey was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
How do you think that would have worked out for the series if it had? I mean, obviously Prey did extremely well, and it's getting a theatrical sequel and got a physical release because people demanded it, right? What do you think this would have been like if you were watching it in the context of just sort of straight to Hulu?
See, this is the first Alien movie I've ever seen in a theater.
Okay.
So this is my first like experience of seeing like a xenomorph that big, and like just like any cool movie that you see in a theater, nothing can replicate it.
Right.
But like the other thing of it is that for the rest of my life, seeing it at home is how I'm going to watch this movie.
Right.
So that'll kind of be like the default, even though I did see it in theaters, So it's one of those things where I'll have the advantage because I did already see it theatrically first. Yeah. But like when I watch it, it'll be at home. And so I'll be like, it's just like another Alien movie, just like all the rest of them are,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
When I heard it was going straight to theaters instead of Hulu, I was happy because I like to collect my Alien Universe movies on Vudu, which is now Fandango.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when Prey came out on Hulu, we only ever got that DVD and Blu-ray release, but you still can't get it digitally, just like I can't get Texas Chainsaw digitally because it's still on Netflix. So I'm like, I can add this one to my collection. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that is. I like that about it too. I am kind of bummed that Prey sort of is being held hostage at Hulu. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't like that concept. I don't like that idea. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad this got a theatrical release. It fucking needed it, and it was a really good theater experience. I've seen everything except Aliens and Alien 3 and Resurrection in theaters because I caught the director's cut release of Alien.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously the rest of them, like even the AVPs, I saw in theaters because
I think it's just Aliens and Alien 3 that I haven't seen on the big screen.
Nice.
Yeah, my buddy and I saw Prometheus at IMAX, and then we saw Covenant at a theater, Regal Theater.
That one didn't get the IMAX treatment for you, huh?
No, unfortunately not. But I think I would have enjoyed it at IMAX for sure.
Yeah, these are. I'm not huge. I'm kind of okay with watching stuff at home generally, but these are very fun, very good theater experiences every time I've had one. Even when the movie's bad, it's still a lot of fun to see xenomorphs, biting people's heads off or, punching through people's heads.
Yeah. And I have a friend that's going into Romulus blind, and I told him, I said, in my opinion, they need to watch the director's cut of Alien before this movie.
Yeah, I think that helps.
Yeah.
I feel like they just sync up.
After I got home from the movie, I was talking in a Discord server about how, hey, I just got back from the movie and somebody said, they straight up asked me, it's like, I've seen all of them, but when I go to see it, I'm going with a group of people that haven't seen any of them. What should I tell them about, what part should they be familiar with, or should they watch anything first? And I was like, they probably don't need to watch any of them, but if they have the time, recommend that they watch the first one, or at the very least, tell them about the first one. Sure. Because that's really the only one that's plot relevant, really. Right. Even though it's actually not. I didn't want to spoil the Prometheus pathogen reveal to them, but you also don't need to have seen that in order to make sense of this, because this movie, it works differently than it did last time. So I was like, if they have the time, just have them watch the first one, then you'll be fine. And she was like, cool.
Do you think, so Ridley Scott was a producer on this. Do you think he was like, all right, Fede, throw me a bone here. Can we get a little bit of this stuff I made?
Apparently, according to Fede, it was Ridley's idea to have Ian Holm in this movie.
Okay. I'm thinking more about the Prometheus connections, but...
Well, yeah, but it's like you saying that reminded me, according to him, Ridley was like, hey, it'd be cool if we did. And so that's what you saying that reminded me of that.
Gotcha.
But. And all of the promotional real world stuff that came up for us, maybe people with face huggers in front of the Romulus poster.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I wish it was in the movie, but when the trailer played, the final trailer, they played Lucky Star. Mm-hmm. They had that in the movie, and I love that subtle connection to Alien, which wasn't in the final cut of Romulus. So
yeah,
I genuinely loved the whole build up to this film. It was so cool. I would have cut off my right arm to have been at Hall H at that SDCC. I watched the video of it. It just looks so cool. And then they all got those facehuggers at the end, and it's just I'm so jealous.
Thank you.
The whole
on the facehugger, I'd be like, you're good.
Neil's like, I'll pass on getting that.
No. They're like, take it. No, it's yours. It's free. No.
It's immediately going to eBay with that thing before it comes to my house.
But I just think the whole marketing for it, I think the hype was real, and I think talking to you guys now, it's been all kind of therapeutic, and it's actually kind of made me think. Actually, maybe I enjoyed the film a little bit more than I originally thought.
I think
I will be honest. Now talking about it and bringing up scenes and feelings and whatnot of watching the film, I'm like, maybe I enjoyed it a little bit more than I think I did.
I 100% agree with you. I'm on board, man.
I think my evaluation, it's gone up in my estimation also. I avoided everything but the original teaser, right? I avoided as much. I don't think I had
we-
anything
Nice.
accidentally spoiled for me at all. Tom, you almost did, but unfortunately I missed it.
Oh, what was this? The toy,
Yeah.
the SDCC toy reveal, yeah.
Yes.
And that doesn't help that I don't know what I'm doing on Discord to keep
Right.
things secret.
That's fine. That's fine.
You're forgiven.
I got there in the end.
You're forgiven. I realized something was going on, and I was like, I better not even look at this, and covered part of my screen with my hand when I was trying to tell you how to spoiler tag stuff. I mean, we got it worked out.
Yeah, that was it.
But,
yeah. But that, for me, like, I'm a massive alien. I love collecting the figures. Like, I love it. So for me, that was a big one because I was so excited about that figure reveal.
Right. But the issue I still have, I was trying to avoid spoilers or trailers or anything so that I could go in just in my head, like with no expectations. I'm just going to take this as it is. Mm-hmm. Turns out it's impossible for me to walk into any alien movie without any expectations at all. Right. Like it's been, so much of like monumental film watching experiences for me. And like, I'm getting, more and more steeped in the lore and the expanded universe as we're doing this show. It's a film franchise that I just hold in high regard in general. So there's no walking in without expectations. And that might be what let me down, was I might have built it up to something unreachable in my head, just completely on my own. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's just not realistic. So I think talking about this has also definitely bumped this up for me. What did I say? I was giving it like a 7.
7.5.
7.5. I'm going to bump it up to like 8.5 right now. And, I can imagine that the more I watch this, because this is a very watchable alien movie.
Yeah.
Totally.
I can see myself putting this one on pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really strong entry in the series, and it's going to, already, like, even at 7.5, that's above, that's in the top half of these films for me. Right.
It's the 4th best alien film in my opinion.
Yeah. For me, it's 3rd or 4th also, probably, even at a 7.5. That's not me taking shots at the franchise as a whole. Just, we've gotten a lot of sort of lackluster sequels, and if we're throwing those AVP movies in here, right. But yeah, this was a good movie. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not saying anything surprising.
And I think it's totally worth mentioning that just like the first Alien, the cast was very small in this movie.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think really outside of those like 3 kids that beat up Andy, there was only like 7 or 8 people credited in the whole film.
Yeah,
something like that.
You get our top 6, and then we're down to Rosie Edie as the Weyland-Yutani officer, and that's
Yeah.
So
there was like that lady who was in the one scene, the 3 kids that beat up Andy that were in one scene,
and then just extras in the colony.
We got Trevor Newland as a xenomorph. I love that we're doing suit actors for those.
Yeah.
And then Robert Bobrovsky as the Offspring, and then of course Ian Holm and Daniel Betts in the combined role of Rook.
Sure.
Very small cast. Oh, and then Anna Marie Griggs as the voice of Mother. Her IMDb.
Yeah, she was also like one of the effects people in the movie.
I love her. Her IMDb photo is her with a horse. That rules. Yeah. Oh, that's one other thing we didn't mention. I guess Fede reached out to the people who had worked on like the xenomorphs for Aliens, and maybe the miniatures and stuff also for the special effects on this.
And I think I read somewhere that some of the effects people also worked on one of the shorts in like the Alien 40th anniversary short collection.
Those little shorts that they did,
Those are great.
I think it was Alien Ore. I think
is that the one where they're in the mining.
I believe so, but I honestly get them mixed up. But one of the people that worked on one of those 40th anniversary shorts, some of those people that did visual effects for that also worked on this movie too.
Very cool.
Oh, awesome!
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool that they got people back.
Yeah, and
it's a respect for the franchise, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was clearly made by people who care about the franchise too, right? Not to throw out the love letter thing, because it's more than just that. It's just a bunch of people who wanted to make a good Alien movie.
Yeah.
And I think that they were successful.
Yeah.
Do we think that there's going to be an extended or altered cut?
I don't know. I haven't. Have you heard anything about anything that hit the cutting room floor?
I don't think any
haven't.
scene looks unfinished. Like it all looks intact, doesn't it? I can't. Like you could argue that maybe there's some more action for like the 0G bits or something, but at the same time, I don't need an extra bit because
I can't imagine what kind of deleted scenes this movie would even have.
Yeah,
everything felt like it kind of held together to me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I guess we're sort of past the days of that, huh?
Sure.
Like everything just goes into the film.
The unrated
It's just
DVD
some of the set photos showed they built like massive greenhouse areas and things for the colony.
Oh, that would have
and
been
we really didn't see like
Yeah.
a wide scape of the colony. It was just like
we really
these
didn't,
directed areas, the colony affairs, the campsite, like the little restaurant there.
Yeah, some more camera pans of the that would have been
if they wanted to give
probably
me
the only extra I would like to see.
they wanted to give me 5 more minutes of exploring the station, I would take that for sure.
Totally.
Especially if there is, like a greenhouse area. Are we talking about on the station? Because I love an oxygen.
On Jackson's, I think on Jackson's Stars where the set photos were from.
Okay. I love that.
It was
too.
like because it was supposed to be like a farming and mining colony.
Gotcha.
And all we really saw or heard about was the mining part.
Okay.
There was a really nice little kind of callback for me personally with the spaceship. The spaceship really reminded me of Dead Space. Like I really got some Dead Space vibes from it, and I just thought it was like a nice flip because Dead Space was obviously inspired by Alien.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree to that.
Still haven't played that. I got it installed. Still haven't touched it.
What, Dead Space?
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know you anymore. What the?
Haven't we? We've talked about this, right? Like I started playing it like years ago when it came out, and the way the HUD projected on the environments around me, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I also didn't like it, which is why I didn't play the original release of it. But I did get a good chunk of the way into the remake, and I gotta say, the game is good.
It's damn good.
I think I'm just going to play the Callisto Protocol instead.
That's not as good.
Are you deliberately trying to trigger me right now?
I did buy that for like $6 on clearance somewhere recently. So.
Yeah, I recently bought it. Like it was in a bargain bin. Yeah, and it's fine, but it's no Dead Space.
I don't hate that game, and $6 is definitely cheap for what there is. But Dead Space is better.
Okay, I'll get to it.
Make sure you do.
I got to play. I got to finish off. Actually, I'm going to start over Dark Descent first.
Yeah, we really need to get on that. We need to get on that.
I recently went on a replay of that, and my game seems to have picked up a bug, and I can't get past a particular part of the game. And I looked online, and it says, "Yeah, you're just going to have to delete your file." And I'm like, "But it's a new game plus." File, so I'm just going to delete it all if I do that.
How they not?
I was actually going to run through that again too, just to collect and read all the data pads, because that's what I really like about those video games: the narrative, the background narrative, all the little details, and all that stuff.
It's
a great game.
It's like flipping a coin if I'm going to read those or just skip over them, honestly. But I got to collect every single one I came across when I was playing.
For sure. But I guess this is for the second time. Does anyone else have anything else they want to say about Romulus?
Final.
Because we asked that last time. Well, we asked that last time, and turns out the answer was yes.
Yes.
So,
it's good to check in.
Quite a lot more, actually.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say, or are we good to wrap it up?
I think I'm all tapped out.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that I loved the most the scene where Tyler is being held up by the tail, and I thought he was going to blast off that pulse rifle.
Yes.
But you get that aliens scene where all the xenomorphs are climbing through the ceiling, and it looked exponentially better in this movie. And great. I was just floored. I loved the way those costumes and the practical effects and everything looked. It was just killer, man.
Again, the effects team on this film just slayed it. They slayed it.
I do have one gripe.
Go on.
All right. So Tyler's death, that scene was fantastic, right? That's when we really sort of start to realize that there's a bunch of these things running around, not just the one that they were aware of. We got the acid shootout, the zero gravity acid shootout, which was dope. By the time we get to the elevator, we're back to just sort of one xenomorph doing one thing while a whole bunch of other ones are just sort of there hanging out. And I guess it's because they haven't had hosts for a while up there and they're going to try to collect people for, breeding purposes, right? But I was also just sort of expecting there to be some kind of a swarm in that elevator before they got, crushed by it. And they just seem to just sort of be like hanging onto the walls, sort of taking their time to me. It's not a big gripe, but like I keep seeing people talking about how this movie like combines, it brings in the action from Aliens. And I'm not sure any of those big action scenes had the same sort of frantic energy to me as Aliens. I mean, even the zero gravity shootout, she was just stationary the whole time.
I think a big part of that, my brother knows a bit about film, and I was talking to him after we got out of the film. A big part of that is actually there's some editing faults in this where they ramp up the action, especially when Kay was separate from the group.
Right.
They ramped up a bit of action, and it built up, and then they went to Kay. And then you went and saw what Kay did. And then you went back to the action and it's now happening.
Sure.
And then they cut back to Kay. I think there was a lot of cut back to and from Kay and then the group that kind of interrupted the action. Whereas if you just stayed with the action for a bit and shown all of that and then gone to Kay, it maybe would have been a little bit more in your face. But I understand what you're saying. There were times where I was just like, oh, here we go. And then... Oh,
right. It's not it's not enough to like, it doesn't ruin it for me or anything like that. But I just, I sort of, I don't know. I think that's they were keeping to that 30-minute countdown thing, which is why they're cutting back and forth so that we don't have like, 10 minutes with these people and, 10 minutes with Kay or whatever. I don't know the actual numbering, but yeah, it was just, I still liked it, but it just did seem like the xenomorphs in here weren't quite as hungry as I've gotten used to seeing them. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I get where you're coming from.
But maybe that's just because I've played a lot of Fire Team, where they're just like running in front of your bullets,
they're coming out of the goddamn walls.
So I'm not going to fault the movie for that. Like again, I still think it was very well paced and well edited and everything. So. Just one little thing where I was like expecting that big xenomorph face off, and I don't feel like we ever really got it.
The surge.
Yeah. But they had to leave room for the newborn.
That's right. I liked the moment in the elevator shaft where like Andy was reaching down to Rain and then they made the decision to have him not be able to grab her.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, any other movie would have made that work, but nope, they're like... And then they follow that up by dropping a huge elevator on a bunch of aliens and crushing them, which I thought fucking ruled.
I think that's...
Wouldn't that create a massive pool of acid blood that surely would have got through the hole?
Okay, look, yes. And I don't have a follow-up to that. You're correct.
Yeah, they're on their way out at that point anyway. I mean, but... Yeah, I think that's what it was when she was falling and then she gets caught by the xenomorph, but not speared. He like catches her and holds her in the tail. That's when I was like, okay, they must be collecting ghosts.
The one time in this entire movie that a xenomorph does not immediately just attack someone when they're in range is when it's the main character that they need to have survive to the end of the movie.
Yeah, and I'm glad they did that because like that's their main objective is to cocoon someone and preserve them as a live host. So if they're killing everybody, it doesn't work.
And she had just eliminated like 8 or 9 of them. So they were probably worried about their numbers. Okay.
That makes sense.
I'll buy it. It's fair. Perfect movie now. Flawless.
Explained away.
Yeah. We talk about anything long enough, we can find a reason for it, right?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, this has hardly felt like almost 3 hours. I had so much fun chatting about aliens.
Yeah.
And I think, Neil, we've had this conversation in the past, but I'd love to talk sometime about aliens alchemy.
Okay. You got time now?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a pitch out here. You guys don't have to commit now, but since since we're talking Romulus, why don't we all get together again to talk about the Romulus one-shot in October?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
You know me,
You know.
I'm always up for comic book talk.
Already got
yeah.
it pre-ordered, baby.
Hell yeah. We can see, maybe that'll help us reevaluate the movie a little bit, or just,
Yeah.
Do we know anything of what it is? Because in my head, I thought maybe it might be Big Chap's slaying of the Renaissance. Maybe
That would be fun.
that would be
I would.
a lot of fun.
It would be nice to see Big Chap in action again, even if it
Yeah.
is in a comic book.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's. I'll just read the solicitation really quickly,
Yeah.
and then we can go forward from there. Following the theatrical release of the highly anticipated blockbuster Alien Romulus, Marvel Comics presents an all-new story revealing secrets of the film's legendary antagonists.
Okay.
How do the Xenomorphs find Rain, Andy, and their scavenger crew? Familiar faces lurk in the shadows, and this issue shines light on them all.
Nice.
So the
Well, I
familiar
guess-
faces, Rook,
I guess
Ash.
Rook is going to be in the comic. then,
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're getting a prequel. We're going to sort of get, I think, a little bit more information about Ren Station, and so the experiments going on there.
I'm into
And
it.
yeah, I think you're right. Maybe the killing spree of the Big Chap before it gets.
Cool.
Is it just a single shot? It's not a two-part. It's just a one.
It is, yeah. It's just a one shot, but I
Okay.
think it's.
32
I don't know if
pages.
it's like. Yeah,
It might be like double length or a little extended or something.
I hope.
Might have a
Tiny
QR
little
code on the
boxes.
last page, right?
Yeah, some cool variant covers.
Nice. Well, let's make it happen.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm in.
I'm down.
Quiet. Alexa, be quiet. Sorry, she started talking. All right. I think we should wrap it up, though.
Works for me.
General
Do
consensus
you want to try it third time, Kenny?
seems to be this is a good movie.
That's the charm, after all. So.
All right, go for it, Kenny.
All right. I guess I'll ask for the third time. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say about the movie before we wrap it up?
Oh yeah, one more thing.
I got a couple bullet points I'd like to hit before.
Maybe I'm phrasing the question badly.
All right, let's wrap it up, Kenny. You know what? No, Mike.
Yeah, I would say don't start with me. I'm not one of the guests.
Mike,
so.
where can people find you on the internet if you want them
They
to?
can find me on Instagram at aliens_EU and as Synth Norbert at avp.fandom.com.
Hell yeah,
Join, learn, research, contribute, join the discussion.
do it.
Let's do this.
Tom, where can people find you on the internet if you want them to?
You can find me on Instagram, art_of_1tez. And I am currently working on a piece from a scene from Romulus, a really cool scene from Romulus, and I'll be
Nice.
posting that up very soon.
Hell yeah. Kenny, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky and the PSN and a couple other things that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Letterboxd is one of them at CYHOBBEZ.
I'm on the internet, Twitter, Threads, probably Blue Sky still, I don't know, wherever. At Final Neil, that's Neil with an A. And yeah, I do stuff on there sometimes. Kenny, where can people find the show?
Our Twitter account is at Crew Expendapod. Our Blue Sky account that I always forget to fucking post on. I remember like once every month and a half is at Crew Expendable. Our Instagram and our Threads is both at Crew Expendable Pod. Our website is crewexpendable.net. Our YouTube page is youtube.com/@crewexpendable. And our email, which somehow Neil forgot to reference earlier in the episode, even though every episode he always does, he forgot to this time. It's mother@crewexpendable.net.
You know, I didn't have to this time because we got Mike and Tom on and they know a lot more about alien stuff than we do.
Fair
So
enough.
we just shoot questions directly at the experts.
Let's give it up for Cooler Bot.
Yeah.
Tom, Mike, thank you so much for hanging out. And this has
Thank
been
you for having me.
Yeah, it was
Thank
a
you,
great
guys.
time.
kind of
That
a
was
long
really fun.
one, but this has been a
Yeah.
blast, and definitely want to get you guys back on for anything, but you know, definitely the Romulus tie-in comic.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'll see you there.
All right. So until next time.
Stay frosty.